out-of-focus background with streaks of light tearing through space. In this shithole of a world, I've lived a completely miserable life. Appearing with a look of panic and despair, the weak never have any wealth or status to call their own. The abyss swallows everything like a monster's maw, and that's the reason I'm slowly dying just because I'm too weak. The abyss swallows everything like a monster's maw, and that's the reason I'm slowly dying just because I'm too weak. That ray of light exploded violently the moment it hit the planet, and the glare started consuming all life. White light ripped through the night, and in just a moment, this tiny blue planet, the cradle of all things, felt its life being swallowed whole, turning into a massive desert before long. The city fell into ruin, and the few remaining survivors had no choice but to build their own fortresses. His face was a swirl of complex emotions. If it's total destruction, why not just wipe us out completely? Why let these bugs keep surviving? Zeon was instantly knocked back by an impact, and the thug's lips curled into a provocative smirk. Whoops, my bad, my hand slipped a little. He kept his cool demeanor. Sorry about that, seriously. Give me your name so I know who to apologize to. His face was a swirl of complex emotions. Zeon. The thug burst into an excited laugh. Just a first name? What, do you only have one dad or something? His eyes darkened as he teased. Ah, look at the kid pouting. The guys boarding this mine bus usually had one thing in common. The thug excitedly walked over and patted his shoulder. Relax, kid, we're in the same boat, so shouldn't we get along? Zeon fell silent for a moment. Not a single person here was actually a miner. So, what did they catch you for? His face was a swirl of complex emotions. If they weren't criminals, they were on the wanted list, definitely one of the two. A mocking voice called out, assault, fraud, or theft. If you want to listen to me, throw a counterpunch as fast as lightning. The thug fell backward painfully. He clenched his fist with a wild look in his eyes. Dead wrong, dumbass. You really want to know? His eyes flared with intense murder intent. I'm in for murder. He paused to think for a moment. Well, to be exact, I didn't kill a person, because in Neo Soul, only the strong are considered human. A swirl of complex emotions crossed his face. It's no big deal. What's the problem with adding one more piece of trash to the landfill? It was just a rat that tried to steal my stuff, so I put it down. Damn it, I didn't know it was someone else's pet rat. Lee Jiryong's younger brother spoke in a provocative tone. Do you even know my brother is Lee Jiryong? You're dead meat, you idiot. His face twisted in terror. It was Lee Jiryong. Murderous intent instantly filled the air. If the strong are considered human, then the awakened are gods standing above everyone. A chill went down his spine in panic. A sewer rat like me actually crossed a god. Rumors spread everywhere that Lee Jiryong was hunting me down, so I scrambled onto this bus heading for the mines right away. He froze for a second, calculating his odds. The thug stayed unfazed by the heavy punch. You done talking? Zeon still hadn't fully recovered. What the hell? Why does my head hurt so much? Don't tell me. The moment he lowered his guard, he was slammed to the ground, his face contorted in pain. He slowly cracked his knuckles. Why didn't you say so earlier? I'm here for the exact same reason. I was gonna treat you like a little brother and show you some love, but you had to go and cross the line. He seemed to lose his cool out of sheer rage. Damn it, bullshit, are you kidding me? I ran away just to get away from an awakened. Do you guys even get it? Do you know what I had to go through to drag myself here? Fuck, why here of all places? Why? The lackeys joined in provocatively. Looks like the big guy needs to teach you a lesson. The thug's killing intent exploded. Everyone here agrees, right? Zeon questioned indignantly. The guy was an awakened. Did I really have to run into an awakened even in this hellhole? He charged straight in, trying to break through the encirclement. The vehicle shook violently from the impact. His voice dropped into a threatening growl. Damn it, what the hell is this? Hey driver, do you even know how to drive? His back looked slouched and helpless for a moment. Clutching his injury, he demanded furiously, what is that guy mumbling about? His face suddenly paled in terror. He paused and hesitated before speaking. It's not that, I told you it's not. We're not heading to the mines at all. His eyes turned bloodshot with a look of madness. What? What the hell are you blabbering about? Sweat poured down his face. We're being swallowed by the abyss like a monster's maw. We're getting swallowed. Everyone instantly stumbled, losing their balance. Come to think of it, things always repeated themselves like this. Xian was struggling as his body was about to be submerged. He used to sink into bottomless pits out of sheer helplessness. Whether in Neo Soul or facing an awakened, even getting swallowed by a sandworm wasn't anything special anymore. Right now, Xian was still fighting for his life, because in this trash world, getting robbed by the strong was just everyday life. His eyes turned bloodshot, and his vision gradually blurred. So dying right here is just because I'm way too weak. Darkness seemed to envelop everything. It was such a cliché, predictable ending that it was sickening. Of course, I used to dream about a world where I was a bit stronger so I wouldn't die a miserable death like this. But now, those words are just meaningless illusions. A resolute hand reached up through the sea of sand. The ground was still slowly trembling. His fingers were broken, yet they held unwavering determination. The sand pit kept swirling like a raging storm. His eyes snapped open in utter shock. Xian forcefully broke free from being buried in the sand. He gripped his shirt tightly, tears streaming down his face. Xian's whole body was racking with excruciating pain. Broken statues appeared all around. His eyes were bloodshot with horror. The tall tower was slowly leaning over. The entire city was swallowed in a sandstorm. Xian suddenly stopped in his tracks, frozen in place. Sturdy buildings were gradually rotting away. His face was a mix of complex emotions. The point of impact flashed like a crack of destiny. With eyes that seemed to hold the entire galaxy, his whole body was wrapped in powerful internal energy. The sand exploded, and a beam of light pierced right through, blasting a giant hole. Thick slime slowly dripped down. I will survive, no matter what. His face showed a mix of complex emotions in this cursed world full of nothing but sand and dust. He stood up straight with a determined look. I swear it. His eyes flashed, and he turned toward the monster with a crazy look on his face. I will survive at all costs. A mix of complex emotions washed over his face. I can feel this pain crystal clear. He seemed to feel the change inside his body, every single cell screaming. This was his awakening. Xian stood tall and proud in front of the ferocious monster. It bared its sharp teeth at him wildly. Xian stayed completely calm, his eyes unfazed. Yeah, bring it on. Young Biam suddenly stepped in, pushing him back. For a test subject, you're just getting in the way. Xian's eyes widened in horror as he was hurled backward by the force, crashing hard onto the ground. He struggled to sit up and grumbled, "What the hell? Who is that guy? When did he even get close?" A chill ran down his spine in terror. Too close. The stench of blood instantly filled the air. Seriously, what is he made of to take that many hits without going down? Young Biam stood tall, declaring clearly, "Scared of heights? Let me send you back down then." Young Biam raised his foot toward the sword and slammed it down hard. First floor. The giant monster collapsed heavily onto the ground. Xian's face instantly went pale seeing it firsthand. What the hell is this? Xian lost himself in thought for a moment. He took down a sandworm in a split second? Young Biam sighed softly and gasped, "So this is an awakening." A mix of complex emotions washed over his face. "I've never seen an awakened like him before." Giselle excitedly introduced, "Kang Young Biam, he's our captain." Xian paused, totally confused. "What?" Giselle smirked with excitement. "See that? That's why he's the captain. Is this his fastest kill ever?" Xian immediately dropped into a guarded stance. When did he even move? He panicked as his arm felt like it was plunged into an ice bath. He's way stronger than he looks. Wait a second. His arm is freezing cold. Young Biam's voice deepened with authority. "Sandworms aren't that tough to deal with." Giselle quickly replied, "Roger that, boss." Young Biam's eyes showed a swirl of complex emotions. Young Biam sighed softly watching the argument unfold. "Seriously, damn it." Giselle smiled excitedly, a spark of curiosity in her eyes. She decisively dragged Xian away and pinned him down to control him. Giselle watched closely, full of excitement. "Alright, let's see what this guy's rank and ability are. Time to check." "Nervous yet?" She suddenly stopped, her eyes filled with doubt. Dwayne Sio's voice dropped heavily. "Captain, this guy isn't an awakened." "What? What do you mean? That makes no sense." She maintained her nonchalant attitude while Xian shouted back in frustration, "Are you crazy? Get off me." Giselle declared clearly, "He doesn't have a rank badge." Xian's eyes darkened with anger. "No badge at all? Seriously? But I definitely awakened. Right? Why don't I have one? The driver immediately yelled out an urgent warning, don't just stand there, move it. I told you the sun is setting. Hurry up. Giselle's eyes flickered, and she spoke in a heavy tone, Captain, what do we do with him? If we leave him behind, he's a goner. Xian frowned in frustration. You almost broke my arm and now. Yongbyum's face was a swirl of complex emotions. He also watched closely without flinching. Yongbyum nonchalantly waved his hand and declared, throw him in the truck. He's heading to the mines anyway. Giselle instantly perked up. Got it. The truck accelerated quickly, speeding across the desert. Giselle's voice turned sharp as she warned, why do you always charge in on your own? I told you, stop making things complicated. Don't split from the group on your own, and don't play deaf. Xian lay quietly amid the heated argument. How much farther to the mines? Don't change the subject. What if the sun goes down? It's a nice ride, though. He paused as the sand shifted, just like always. Xian kept his cool demeanor. He sat up firmly and started testing his movements to make sure he was in control. I definitely awakened something. A flicker of doubt crossed his face with a hint of anxiety. But why couldn't they see my rank badge? Come to think of it, the color was a bit weird too. Orange? No, he stared intently at the badge on his arm. It was the exact same color as the sand. A swirl of complex emotions crossed his face. The badge's glow reflects and awakens innate affinity. Duasio laughed out loud with excitement. Magic types glow blue. Yongbyum's expression shifted, dropping into alert. Combat types glow red. His hand slowly touched the surface of the sand. Though there were rare cases with different affinities, his eyes were focused on controlling his actions, but power over sand was something I'd never even heard of. A faint look of relief touched his face, feeling satisfied. The system displays the lowest rank, F rank. But I can feel this power has infinite potential, just like the desert itself. The corners of Xian's mouth twisted into an excited smirk. He stayed focused on his control ability. I'll wait until I completely master it. Until that day comes, I'll hide it and bide my time. His expression shifted into a crazy look. This whole desert, this whole world will be my stage. The scene transitioned as sunset fell. He observed carefully and meticulously. So this is the quarry? There's even a checkpoint, looks pretty average. The guide said in a low, threatening voice, hey kid, follow me? Xian spoke up helplessly, you haven't untied me yet. The guy grit his teeth hard, keep talking and I'll shut your mouth myself. He immediately lowered his voice pleadingly, alright, got it. His eyes were on high alert. Something's not right. She kept her cool demeanor, just because he's the only survivor? Don't overthink it, it was probably just luck. Yongbyum's face was a swirl of complex emotions. No, it wasn't luck. He frowned and hesitated, what the hell? A mysterious hole suddenly appeared. Yongbyum walked over slowly with a suspicious look. I should have asked for his name. I've got a feeling I'll run into him again someday. On the street, people were bustling in and out, walking around laughing and talking, and the shops here were packed with customers too. Xian glanced around with a completely nonchalant look on his face. Seeing that furious reaction, Xian was a bit puzzled too. You're just gonna walk away like that? The guide shouted, pointing right at his face, you want me to put a bullet in your head before I go? Xian just stood there looking clueless. No, I mean, what if I do something here? The guy turned around angrily and walked away. Do whatever the hell you want. What good could trash like you do anyway? Xian's eyes darted left and right, checking out his surroundings. What an idiot. I'm hungry anyway, might as well walk around and check things out. Is there anywhere decent to eat around here? Then he walked up to an old man nearby. Excuse me, can I ask you something? Right as the words left his mouth, his eyes went wide in pure shock. On the wall was a poster reading, Let our labor illuminate the way. Neo Soul. Seeing him staring so intently, the guy suddenly spoke up, what do you think? A wonderful motto to live by, isn't it? The old man's rough hands clenched tight. It's so spot on, it's hilarious. That's exactly what it is. Isn't Neo Soul's energy source mana crystals? Xian sat down, resting his chin on his hand thoughtfully. What do you mean? If it's not mana, what other energy source is there? The old man pointed right at him. It's you. Klex let out a sarcastic chuckle, implying, it's rats like you. Just follow orders, and when we run short on people, we just add more. Isn't that the most perfect energy source? Xian nonchalantly ate his meat skewer, chewing constantly. You sure talk a lot for someone I just met. Guys your age are probably all pushing up daisies by now. The old man laughed and replied casually, at my age, everything catches my interest. Then Klex rested his chin on his hand, looking at Xian thoughtfully. So what's it like inside a sandworm's belly? Does it feel like being back in your mom's womb? He froze, eyes wide with shock. Word travels that fast? Klex threw his head back and burst out laughing. A clueless kid like you is clearly gonna turn into sandworm shit real soon. This place isn't a hideout for you to run away to. Xian chewed his meat and looked up in confusion. A hideout? I came here to make money. The old man suddenly stopped laughing and pointed behind himself. Bullshit. Let me show you something cool. Look over there. Off in the distance was a storage rack filled with old, rotting, battered boxes. Seeing this, Xian looked at the old man with a skeptical expression. Are you losing your mind? Calling this pile of junk amazing? What even is all this garbage? Klex rested his chin on his hand, smiling with pride. These are all things I've gathered piece by piece over time. His eyes unconsciously flicked toward him with a subtle, loaded look. The ultimate end for everyone who comes here, and your future too. The old man reminisced for a moment, then quietly recounted, everyone who gets here at first puts up a fight, refusing to enter the mines. You know how it is, right? A mana crystal mine is just that kind of place. Because they're terrified of dying if they go inside, they sell everything they possibly can just to scrape by, even selling themselves short. But they're only dragging things out, nothing actually gets solved. And the tiny bit they have left slowly bleeds away. In the end, everyone reaches the exact same conclusion. They tell themselves that letting the mind swallow them whole is actually easier. He paused, continuing with a sorrowful look on his face. They say when people die, they leave behind a name, but when trash dies, it only leaves behind trash. Xian suddenly frowned, looking amused. Seeing this, Klex pressed him, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you'll leave behind. He jumped to his feet, asking decisively, whatever, how much? The old man chuckled excitedly and quoted his price, 10 sol. Xian suddenly slammed the table, his eyes wide with utter shock. Are you insane? Is this meat made of gold? Klex smiled philosophically as he explained, everything is precious around here. Even the skewer you just threw away is worth 9 sol. Hearing this, the corner of Xian's mouth curled up in a sarcastic smirk. What cheap-ass meat are you using to jack up the price like that? Sorry, but I don't have that kind of money. The people nearby reflexively stood up, weapons in hand. Xian just stood there, mocking, you saw I was new and figured you'd rip me off, huh? Have you lost your damn mind? 10 sol. The people nearby reflexively stood up, weapons in hand. Xian just stood there, mocking, you saw I was new and figured you'd rip me off, huh? Have you lost your damn mind? 10 sol. Xian just stood there, smirking and teasing, sorry, but there's no way in hell I'm paying. Deal with it yourself. Right at that moment, he finally noticed the crowd gathered behind him. Cold sweat broke out on the back of his neck. Xian summoned all his courage and turned his head to look. Seeing the sight before him, he froze in his tracks. Watching this, Klex let out a sarcastic laugh, don't you get it? How do you think an old man like me can calmly run a business right here at the mines? Right behind him was pitch darkness, yet he could clearly see cold, sharp eyes and gleaming knife tips. Klex let out a soft laugh, taking complete control of the situation as he asked, so, what's your move now? Trapped in an absurdly disadvantageous spot, Xian angrily slammed the table. He shouted back in protest, old man, calm down. Where the hell am I supposed to dig up that kind of cash? Charging 10 sol for this meat is utter bullshit. Hold on, let's negotiate. But Klex just grinned, showing his teeth, and replied softly, short on cash? Don't worry, I'm not totally heartless. We can trade for something else. As soon as he said that, his eyes landed on the stone in Xian's pocket. Right, that mana crystal in your pocket should do just fine. His eyes faltered slightly as he thought to himself, word about that spread already? Klex commanded with a smile, hand it over, fast. I'll buy it at a totally fair price. Xian kept up his firm, resolute attitude. Cut the crap. Do you have any idea what I went through to protect this thing? Just as he finished speaking, a massive hand grabbed his head, pinning him down. Senior, is there really no other way? How about letting me owe you? We can. Saying that, the guy used all his strength to violently slam his head onto the table. The man yelled out to Klex for input. Boss, how long are you gonna listen to him ramble? Let me just bury this brat alive. As soon as the words left his mouth, his hand suddenly floated up into midair while he was still rambling, sand spraying everywhere. Once he regained his composure, the man felt a sword edge lightly graze his bulging, muscular arm. A piece of his arm sliced right off, causing everyone around to flinch in fear. That slash was born entirely from his own rage. Xian's eyes now blazed brightly, filled to the brim with fury. However, it was all just a dream. The mocking voices of the crowd still echoed in his ears. Hey, hey! The man grabbed his head tightly and shoved it forward. Look right here. He even frowned, asking, you alright? You've been spacing out for a while now. Daydreaming? Xian realized with a bitter sting that it was all just an illusion. Fuck! Xian angrily tossed the stone toward Klex. Seeing the old man pick it up, he grit his teeth in frustration. That was the magic stone he had risked his life to protect. Klex held up the stone and inspected it, a calculating look on his face. After thinking it over for a moment, he quoted a price. Looks like it's worth maybe 100 sol. Hearing that price, Xian slammed the table in rage. Are you fucking kidding me? It's worth at least 300 sol. How the hell do you get 100? Klex replied nonchalantly, everything's scarce around here. If I knew you'd react like this, I should have just sold it like sandworm shit instead. Xian slammed the table with all his might. His hands trembled, veins bulging on his skin. These bastards. If I wanted to, I could easily knock this old geezer flat, but now isn't the time. A moment later, he raised his head with a sly smirk. Give me a big chunk of change back, old man. The people nearby snorted with an arrogant attitude. Klex, having gotten what he wanted, nodded. Alright, fine. Keep it safe. This place is crawling with pickpockets and muggers. In fact, I'm looking at one right now. He gestured behind him toward the pile of old, battered boxes. Consider this our first deal, so I'll throw in something extra. Go pick whatever you want from that pile. Xian surveyed the pile of junk. The old man declared firmly, I'll give you whatever you take. Xian began rummaging through the scrap. Seriously, I thought there'd be something good, but it's all complete trash. There's literally nothing worth picking. Klex quietly observed his every move. This kid is pretty interesting. That whole I'd rather die than take a loss attitude. It's been a long time since I've seen someone with such a strong drive to survive. As Xian was digging around, he suddenly stopped. Got nothing better than this? Klex walked over to take a look and explained, that thing? A merchant group left it behind. You probably won't find anything better than that in here. Xian picked it up, examined it, and made his choice. I'll take this. Hearing that, Klex teased him mockingly, you sure have a knack for being interested in useless, weird stuff. Xian nodded, intentionally brushing it off. Yeah, whatever. Taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. By the way, what's your name, old man? The old man ran up behind him and shouted back, Klex. Xian turned back to look, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. Old man Klex, it's best if we never see each other again. Klex let out a soft laugh and turned to walk away. Who knows, kid? Meanwhile, the hourglass was still racing against time. Xian crouched down to look at the fine sand grains with a curious expression. There were about 10 minutes left before it ran completely dry. In the miners' quarters, Xian flopped onto the floor and pulled out his phone. Alright, let's do this. Inhale. Sitting upright, he took a deep breath to relax his mind. Exhale, inhale. After a moment, he gently opened his eyes, using all the power he had just absorbed to move the nearby hourglass. Xian's serious face was suddenly reflected on the hourglass. Seeing this, he angrily shoved it into his pants pocket. So it has nothing to do with my awakening after all. Once he calmed down, he fell into deep thought. I'm certain this is the first time I've ever seen it. He pondered the hourglass, feeling that something was extremely off about it. It was almost as if it had been prepared specifically for him, familiar, as if it was calling out to him, yet completely strange at the same time. What was this feeling? Right at that moment, a man named Park Manhwa kicked the door open and stormed in aggressively. "Are you the brat who just got here today?" He pointed straight at his face and barked, "Hey you piece of shit, why haven't you crawled your ass over to your mines yet? I'm Park Manhwa, you expecting me to personally come drag you out by the neck?" He frowned, answering bluntly, "I'm not a piece of shit, I'm Zeon. And you never told me where to go in the first place." As soon as the words left his mouth, Manhwa delivered a thunderous punch, sending him flying backward. Manhwa clenched his hands into tight fists. He charged forward, roaring at the top of his lungs, "Shut that filthy mouth of yours." Manhwa hurled insults with every punch. "What? You dare talk back to me? You think I'm some pushover?" Zeon tried his best to shield himself with his arms, silently taking every insult the guy threw at him. "An unawakened piece of trash like you dares to run your mouth? Garbage like you better keep your mouth shut and take your beating." After a while, Manhwa stopped punching and barked an order, "All right, enough. Hurry up and follow me." After a while, Manhwa stopped punching and barked an order, "All right, enough. Hurry up and follow me." Summoning his courage, he spoke up, "What a total piece of work. Park Manhwa. I'm gonna remember that name. You're one guy I am definitely going to kill." Near the entrance to Mine Sector 3, the miners saw him coming and greeted him politely, "Hello, Mr. Park." Manhwa brushed past them and ordered, "Get this kid his gear, quick." "Yes, sir." The miners helped Zeon gear up. Manhwa walked ahead and started laying down the rules. "Gear rental and food costs are coming straight out of your pay. Just make sure you dig up magic stones and bring them back. Got it? Answer me, now." Hearing this, Zeon was a bit caught off guard. "That's it? How much is the pay?" Zeon scratched his head, staring at him in utter confusion. "I need to get this straight first." The moment he said it, Manhwa grabbed a nearby pickaxe and slammed it straight into his hard hat. He cursed loudly, "You haven't even picked up a pickaxe and you're asking about pay? The helmet cost is coming out of your check too. Keep that in mind, you bastard." Zeon lowered his head, cursing angrily under his breath, "Damn it." Then Manhwa barked another command in a stern voice, "Shove this kid into shaft 972. Seeing this, a miner tried to intervene, but shaft 972 still has. Seeing him speak up, Manhwa shouted threats, "Or do you want to go in there instead of him? You want in? Answer me, fast." The miner fell silent, not daring to talk back. "Understood, sir. Let's go." As the miner helped him along, he whispered a warning, "Don't even dream of crawling out of here until you've dug up some magic stones. I will legit kill you." Zeon stubbornly brushed it off. "Whatever you say." Manhwa, standing behind them, growled out, "I can still hear you, brat." A moment later, the miner led Zeon deep into the pitch-black shaft. Of all days, he had to show his face on the exact day Park Manhwa lost all his money gambling. As they walked, Zeon stopped in his tracks, shocked. "There's a casino here too?" The miner nodded and confirmed, "Yep. Prostitution, booze, even drugs. It's no different from Neo Soul." He looked up, asking himself, with idiots like Park Manhwa around, business here probably isn't doing so great, huh? That made the miner laugh despite himself. "You really got a sharp mouth on you, kid." Zeon just stood there, asking aimlessly, "Do I really have to mine? My skin is super delicate, I bruise insanely easy." The miner's hands trembled as he gripped the iron bar beside him. "I'm pretty sure you won't be getting hurt." The miner suddenly dropped his head, lost in deep thought. "Nobody's ever been injured in there. Not a single person." Zeon calmly looked straight ahead. "We're here." The moment he stepped inside, he couldn't help but be surprised. So this was shaft 972. Shouldering his pickaxe, Zeon quietly walked inside. "I just need to go dig up magic stones, right? I'll be right back." "You won't be coming back." The miner recounted quietly, "Over a dozen people have gone missing in there. I personally knew 4 of them. Nobody knows if they're dead or alive." He left Zeon alone in the shaft and quietly headed back up. "I'm really sorry, and thank you." His eyes went wide, staring blankly into the distance like a husk of a person. Stunned, Zeon craned his neck and shouted up, "Wait. So that means they're all dead?" Where the hell are you going? You're just gonna leave me here by myself? Hey! Getting no response, Xian stood there with a disappointed look on his face. Did you really just leave? Seriously? Picking up his tools, he started digging away. You absolute bastards! Just because he was in a bad mood, you throw me into a hole like this? As he dug, the pickaxe suddenly recoiled, hitting him right in the face. Every single one of you can just rot and die. Seeing the pickaxe slide away on its own, Xian rushed after it. Get back here! Whether by accident or intent, he ended up wandering into another dark expanse. What the hell is this? Standing in the middle of the vast space, Xian observed silently. I was too pissed off to notice earlier, but this place is dripping with mana today. Is it because they're regular humans that they couldn't feel it? He pulled off his hard hat, using his hand to cover his nose and mouth. The deeper I go, the denser the mana gets. If I were a normal person, I would have been hit with mana overload by now. Where the hell is all this mana coming from anyway? Suddenly, a flash of light burst open right in front of him. As he approached, Xian jumped for joy. Found it! My pickaxe! As Xian stepped forward excitedly, the ground beneath him suddenly caved in. The handle was snapped, but at least he got it back. Suddenly, a black void appeared right beneath him. Still unaware, Xian cheered happily. Looks like I've still got some luck on my side. As soon as the words left his mouth, his eyes went wide as he looked down into the hole. As if pulled down by an invisible force, Xian thrashed frantically, trying to break free. Wait! What is this? Don't tell me this is a gate? That kid is pretty much done for. Before long, Xian vanished, leaving behind only his hard hat and the broken pickaxe tumbling across the ground. Suddenly, the flashlight beam from the hard hat illuminated the pickaxe snapped cleanly in two. A distant memory instantly flooded back. Xian stood alone in the rain, holding a toy in his hand. Even his parents dumped him, so what do you expect? Just hope he doesn't drop dead right at my doorstep. What kind of life had I actually wanted, anyway? Driven by hunger in the pouring rain, he stole food and got chased down and beaten. You wanna die? You got a lot of nerve stealing our food. I just didn't want to starve. As he grew older, he even stole gems, sending staff and bystanders scrambling to chase him down. Catch that brat, fast. I used to have dreams of my own, too. Screaming insults echoed all around him. Do you even know who you just killed? Let's see where the hell you can run now. Your pathetic little life ends right here, you dog. Whether I was frozen in terror or running for my life, I don't care what state he's in, just keep him breathing. Even if I had to break his legs to catch him, a life where I didn't have to live in fear of dying every single day. Back then, every single day was filled with non-stop verbal abuse and insults. Drag that bastard to Lee Jirion right now. I was pretty much like that, just wanting a normal life. After drifting in thought for a while, he was sucked into a completely strange place without a soul in sight. He slowly woke up, quickly clutching his head. My head hurts like hell. What the hell is this? Why is it so damn hot here? Curious, he reached down to touch the ground beneath him, only to be utterly shocked. Is this sand? Xian froze, sweat pouring down like a waterfall. He reflexively looked up, realizing the situation. Oh, I'm screwed. Right, if I fell into a gate. Looking around, it was a literal sea of fire. Dread swelled up inside him. Is this the inside of a dungeon? He only saw something drop right in front of him. With a reluctant look, he bit his lip and tightly squeezed the stone in his hand. Then, he hurled the stone away, screaming out in pure rage. It's so fucking hot, goddammit. Sweating profusely, he blew lightly into his palm. Fuck, so this really isn't a dream. A dungeon that even all of Neo's soul would have to mobilize all its resources to handle. Xian looked at the marks on his palm and muttered to himself, this is definitely volcanic ash, right? Feels like sand baked in fire. If I don't get out fast, my lungs are gonna be roasted crisp. Next, he knelt down, reached over to tear off his pant leg, and tied it around his face like a mask. Alright, if there's an entrance to a dungeon, there's definitely an exit. The most likely spot is the highest peak inside this dungeon. Near that peak, he looked at the raging volcano burning right before his eyes, breaking into a sweat as he thought to himself, standing still is just gonna get me killed by the heat and all this ash anyway. Right now is the best time while there isn't a single monster in sight. I'm gonna take the shortest path at the fastest speed I can. Having made up his mind, Zeon immediately sprinted off. With a determined look, he proved it. Yeah, I'm a guy who doesn't even know the word quit. He nimbly scrambled up the cliff face from below, letting out a sigh of relief. That was way too close, but seeing the ledge he was standing on crack apart, he cursed in rage. Damn it! Drenched in sweat, he reached forward in desperation. Please, just please. Chunks of rock plummeted into the scorching magma below, but he got lucky and managed to grab onto a nearby cliff face just in time. Pulling himself up with his hands to hold his weight, he roared at the top of his lungs, "This fucking lava doesn't scare me at all." Pulling with every ounce of strength he had, Zeon successfully cheated death once again. His heavy panting echoed non-stop. Then, he angrily clenched his hand into a tight fist, squeezed his eyes shut, and screamed, "Park Manhwa, you fucking piece of shit. The moment I get out of here, you're a dead man." After screaming his head off to vent, he managed to regain his composure. Getting angry was only making him hotter anyway. Damn it! Zeon clenched his fists with a look of pure determination. Thoughts flashed through his mind. I'm going to survive this no matter what it takes. I'll fight with everything I've got. I have to make it back no matter what. Just 4 more times. This time, he seemed to carry a grand sense of resolve. Looking at the terrain ahead, he told himself, just jump 4 more times and I'll be there. Don't stop, just move, don't overthink it. My life isn't gonna end in some miserable hole like this. I am never giving up, and it's definitely not ending here. Zeon charged forward with every bit of courage he could muster. But what awaited him was the massive, gaping maw of a creature rising from the scalding lava flow. Zeon was swallowed whole by the beast, looking for all the world like a delicious treat it couldn't pass up. Having successfully snapped up its prize, it plunged straight back into the lava. Up ahead, fire bubbles churned furiously in the intense heat. The silhouette of a giant crocodile moving along the molten lava stream came into view. Right then, a gentle current of energy emanated from the monster's body. Sweating buckets, Zeon hung suspended in midair, pointing his hand straight down, thinking, am I going crazy? How in the hell is it this hot? It's literally melting the volcanic ash. He then thought to himself, I had a hunch, but I really can manipulate volcanic ash too. It was that very realization that saved his life, but he felt only a surge of pain as he slammed hard onto the giant crocodile's body. Lying on its rough hide, he thought weakly, isn't this a bit too hot? The environment in this dungeon is even more toxic than the magical beasts themselves. My nose feels like it's being scorched by the heat and ash. I can't even breathe. My consciousness is fading. Face down on the ground, Zeon muttered under his breath, am I dying? Suddenly, he clenched his fists tight. He forced his body back up, thinking, it hasn't even been a minute since I swore I'd survive, and I haven't even had a girlfriend yet. Dying like this is a total ripoff. He slammed his foot hard onto the ground. Zeon squinted as he channeled his skill, shouting, hey, Grim Reaper, sorry about this, but why don't you take this crocodile skin instead of me? The giant crocodile let out a blood-curdling screech of agony. Glaring furiously, he let out a roar, when a deep voice suddenly echoed, you've got a pretty interesting ability there. Startled, Zeon whipped his head around, thinking, what? Is that voice the Grim Reaper? The voice's owner chuckled in amusement, controlling sand, huh? Pretty cool. But then Zeon immediately yelled back, like hell it is. Through the air, a figure plummeted straight toward the giant crocodile, an old man with a smirk plastered across his face. Zeon spoke up, is that old guy falling? Daoden rocketed down like a shot, a look of pure excitement on his face. Gripping his sword hilt, he leaped down with intense thrill written all over his expression. Zeon's eyes went wide as he watched, thinking, here it comes. Like a bullet, Daoden drove his blade straight into the giant crocodile's head, sending rocks and debris flying everywhere. The sheer shockwave blasted Zeon off his feet. A deafening, earth-shattering explosion echoed as rubble was hurled into the boiling lava flow. Ducking behind a boulder, Zeon clung on for dear life to keep from getting blown away while a frantic scream echoed through the air. Clasping a hand over one ear, Zeon looked utterly bewildered, thinking, what the hell just happened? I can't hear a thing out of this ear. How is the shockwave this insane? Did my eardrum just burst? Who on earth is that old man? Realization suddenly hit him, and he looked up, thinking, wait a sec, that's the old guy from earlier. But first off, where the hell did the monster go? Standing before the giant crocodile, Daoden looked undeniably badass, while Zeon trembled as he thought, he's on a completely different level. He's way out of my league. This isn't just the power of a strong awakener, he's a completely different monster entirely. Just then, a foot stepped forward. The ground beneath immediately shattered into pieces, and his voice rang out at the same time. While Zeon was still staring wide-eyed, Daoden asked in a low tone, "I asked you what your name is." While Zeon was still staring wide-eyed, Daoden asked in a low tone, "I asked you what your name is." Then Daoden started counting down, 3. Those footsteps kept closing in, 1. Zeon just sat there, staring blankly at him as he appeared right in front of him, announcing that time was up. Daoden reached back and grabbed the hilt of his weapon, saying, "If you're not gonna open your mouth, then..." Zeon snapped out of it, realizing, "I can hear again." With his pupils glowing red, Daoden dropped his voice low, "Die." Finally realizing the danger, Zeon panicked and screamed, "Wait, hold on, stop. I don't know what's going on, but please spare my life." Hearing that, Daoden registered it with surprise, "Turns out you're not mute." He then repeated, "I just asked you what your name is." He replied right away, "My name is Zeon." He then repeated, "I just asked you what your name is." He replied right away, "My name is Zeon." Suddenly, he slammed his sword into the ground, sending a loud crash echoing all around. Zeon squeezed his eyes shut in terror, while Daoden casually spoke up, "Daoden." "The name's Daoden." Still in shock, Zeon scowled and demanded, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He casually shot back, "Doing what?" Zeon yelled angrily, "You keep calling me stupid out of nowhere. Why do you keep threatening me like this? I'm grateful you saved my life, but I didn't do anything wrong." Without even letting him finish, Daoden cut him off, "Hey idiot, looks to me like you walked right into a trap." Though annoyed, Zeon was curious as he watched his movements, thinking, "He completely ignored me. What is that thing?" Daoden didn't bother hiding it and explained, "That happens when the mana in a dungeon gets overloaded. The dungeon creates another entrance to protect itself and vents out the excess mana through that rift, dragging living creatures along with it. That's what we call a trap." He flashed a cheery thumbs up, "A regular person wouldn't see one of these in a lifetime. Your luck is absolute garbage." Dissed to his face, the kid scowled and cursed under his breath, "Damn it, Park Manhwa, you bastard." Right then, Daoden spoke up, "Hey, idiot." Hearing that, he turned around furiously, "I told you to stop calling me an idiot." Ignoring him completely, the old man grabbed Zeon's head and turned it, "Let me show you why you're stupid." Looking clueless, Zeon blurted out, "What?" The old man smirked and suggested, "Now channel mana into your eyes and focus." Suspicious, he asked, "What are you planning?" Daoden didn't bother explaining and just forced him to comply, "Shut your trap and do as I say. Increase the purity of your mana. Imagine viewing things with mana instead of your normal eyes and feel the flow." Suddenly, a completely different sight appeared in Zeon's eyes. The moment he saw it, cold sweat poured down his face as he thought, "What the hell is that?" Behind him, Daoden said sternly, "Looks like you can finally see it. That's an invisible monster. Unsuspecting prey get devoured without ever knowing how they died, just like you almost did." Turned pale, Zeon thought to himself, "Something like that was right next to me, and I couldn't feel its presence or any danger at all? If this old guy hadn't helped me just now, I really would have died without knowing what hit me." Having been saved twice, he still glanced over with an unwilling look. Staring at Daoden, Zeon wondered curiously, just how insanely strong is this guy? Then he asked tentatively, "Who exactly are you?" Hearing that, he turned back and snapped, "Are you actually stupid? I told you, I'm Daoden." "You idiot." Sweating profusely, Zeon blared and yelled, "That's not what I meant. Who the hell are you to have this kind of terrifying power? And where the hell is this crazy dungeon anyway?" Daoden casually replied, "It's a dungeon. And right now, it's my hunting ground." Surprised, he blurted out, "Hunting ground?" Daoden nodded, "Yup, a hunting ground. Still wanna know who I am?" He then tilted his head back provocatively, "Then use those eyes of yours and take a good look for yourself." Grayan. Suddenly, the surrounding space shook violently. It felt like that volcano was about to erupt any second. Zeon clapped his hands over his ears and grit his teeth, demanding, "What is this?" Then, with a bewildered expression, he looked up. "What on earth is that old guy doing?" Seeing the scene above his head, Zeon knitted his brows and shouted at the top of his lungs, "What in the hell is going on?" At the same time, Daoden's voice echoed, "Hey, idiot." With an excited grin on his face, he smirked, "If you've got any worth left in you, figure out a way to survive on your own." Seeing Daoden cause a shower of lava rocks to rain down, Zeon screamed, "You crazy old bastard." Gritting his teeth, he complained, "How the hell are these bastards running so fast? Right then, something flew by and grazed his arm. It didn't stop there, swooping right past his heel next. Clutching his wounded arm, Xian frowned and thought, damn it, these slippery monsters are way too fast. I can't outrun them no matter what, so why the hell are they only biting my left side? Gathering all his strength, he pointed his index finger forward and launched an attack. But his opponents were no small fry, immediately striking back. Taking a barrage of hits, he instinctively covered his face. Dripping with sweat, Xian grimaced and thought, shit, even with sand or my divine eyes, I can't keep up at all. Damn it, what do I do now? At this rate, I'm a goner. That old guy saved me twice already. If I die here now, I really am a total idiot. Suddenly, a voice echoed, hey, aren't you gonna answer? Flustered, he thought, say what? Pointing a finger at his face, Daoden scowled and cursed, you idiot. Still confused, he wondered, what is he rambling about? Daoden lost his patience, are you mute? Xian thought his ears were busted, making it hard to hear properly, but he resolved to figure something out, a way to see enemies his bare eyes couldn't track. Holding his head, Xian pushed himself, come up with something. You idiot! Right then, a thought flashed in his mind, startling him, gather mana into your eyes and focus. Raise the purity of your mana. Stop looking with your eyes. Act like you're looking through mana itself. With his pupils glowing amber, Xian muttered, feel the mana. Suddenly, the image of a creature with glowing red eyes charging toward him appeared right before him. Far from being scared, Xian ripped it apart without hesitation. Raising an eyebrow, he reminded himself, feel the magic power radiating from those beasts. Look with mana, not with eyes. When their mana gets close, counterattack at the shortest distance. Glancing back, a thought crossed his mind. Don't tell me that old man calculated everything down to this exact step? Using his ability, Xian yelled out loud, just who on earth are you, old man? Slicing clean through a monster, Daoden yelled in excitement, this is so much fun. What a rush. It's been way too long since my blood boiled like this. Scalding lava splashed in all directions as a massive sound echoed throughout the space. Showing no sign of stopping, he grinned wildly, more. Give me more. With a powerful strike, Daoden cleaved the giant crocodile in half. Come at me, all of you. Under Daoden's attack, the giant beast collapsed right before him. Turning his back arrogantly, Daoden walked away. What a shame. Finally, he swung his sword to finish it off, then walked away quietly. What a waste, I was just getting warmed up. Why are there so few dungeon monsters these days? Man, I miss the good old days. Panting heavily, Xian's eyes went wide in disbelief, thinking, that's insane. I'm actually starting to feel sorry for the monsters. He just stood there frozen, thinking, he took out that whole horde of giant monsters like it was nothing. I'm speechless, I honestly don't even know what to say. Suddenly, he let out a hearty laugh, thinking, guess there aren't any monsters left, huh? Out of nowhere, a massive shockwave wiped the smile right off his face, thinking, shit. A colossal wave of power burst out into the air. The earthquake shook the ground so violently that Xian couldn't stay on his feet. Feeling nauseous, he collapsed and threw up his guts. Wiping his mouth, Xian asked curiously, what the hell was that sound? What now? Daoden's face hardened, cold as ice. That's the roar of the final boss. Surprised, he spoke up, the boss? He explained in a low voice, every dungeon has a boss. The source of the entire zone, the strongest entity in the dungeon. Daoden watched the shape slowly emerging from the shadows. That's the exact reason I'm here. Xian's eyes widened, unable to hide his shock. The final boss? The corner of his mouth twitched into a smirk. Finally decided to show your face, huh? Right before Daoden's eyes, a massive beast flew out from the surge of power. A red drake. Xian's smile vanished completely, his eyes glued to it. A red drake? Isn't that a dragon? On the flip side, the old man couldn't hide his thrill, sadly, no. But at least it's B rank. His voice stuttered more and more, at least B rank? So that means that massive, menacing body appearing before us is a domain. Hearing that, Daoden patted his head in praise, look at an idiot like you actually knowing about domains. Xian's voice dropped, his expression turning serious, I've only heard about it. Monsters B rank and above have unique traits just like humans. His eyes never left the red drake, thinking, just like awakeners are split into ranks. If it has a red domain, it's a combat type. Before Xian could even finish his sentence, it made its move. And ones with a blue domain like that one are magic types. The red drake spread its wings wide and blasted a wave of ice magic right at them. Panicking in sheer terror, he yelled, a magic type? Holy shit, that's way too OP. Out of nowhere, Daoden moved swiftly, swinging Grayan twice in a cross pattern to slice right through it. Zeon stood jaw-dropped, watching shattered ice fragments rain down like hail. Time seemed to stand still for him. All his experience and knowledge felt completely useless in the face of the fierce battle unfolding right in front of this old guy. Daoden landed another strike right along the red drake's spine. It instantly bared its razor-sharp claws to attack, but he blocked it cold. Even more shocking was that Daoden's strike was caught cleanly in its claws. The red drake opened its massive maw, preparing to unleash its ultimate move. In this desperate situation, the old man just flashed a wicked grin. Using just one hand, Daoden channeled mana and touched its body. That was, without a doubt, the smile of an undefeated champion. Hurts like hell, doesn't it, Drake? Hurts like hell, doesn't it, Drake? Then he landed a blow that knocked the red drake down. Because today is the anniversary of your death. Realizing things were turning ugly, Zeon immediately took off running. Damn it, today's the anniversary of my death. Behind him, stray wild currents of mana flew around erratically, making him think, I don't know what's up with these crazy guys, but can't you just fight calmly? Out of options, Zeon channeled mana into both arms to form a barrier. He gritted his teeth, struggling to hold his ground as his feet sank deeper and deeper into the dirt under the massive pressure. Seriously, go fight somewhere far away. Just the shockwaves alone are enough to kill someone. He struggled with all his might to break free from this rock-and-a-hard-place situation. Meanwhile, the guy flying in the air was having the time of his life. This is so damn fun. What a total blast. He perched comfortably right on top of the red drake's head, carelessly steering it around. Feels like we're at an amusement park, doesn't it, Red Drake? Next, Daoden jabbed his sword into its head, causing the red drake to collapse. The remnant mana from the strike shot towards Zeon like lightning. It all happened so fast that he stood frozen in shock for a few seconds. The moment it almost reached him, he finally snapped out of it. Holy shit. But it seemed way too late. He got blasted far into the distance. Zeon tumbled across the dirt like a runaway ball. Then he got thrown off the ground and went flying right into midair. Zeon looked back with eyes full of despair and regret. His pupils went blurry for a split second. Up ahead, the fierce battle raged on, with no one paying any mind to a nobody like him. Daoden raised his fist wildly. Is that all you've got, Drake? With a single hit, he slammed its head hard into the dirt. Calling yourself a dungeon boss when you're constantly bowing down like that? You're a total disgrace to the title of final boss. Furious, the red drake gathered mana inside its maw. Daoden, on the other hand, just grew more and more hyped. Turns out bosses actually know how to pull off moves like this. A massive surge of power blasted from the red drake's mouth. It ripped through the wind, shooting straight at him as the skill finished. Smoke billowed from the red drake's mouth, its face looking as if a massive weight had been lifted off its shoulders. But Daoden's voice rang out from out of nowhere, leaving it utterly stunned. Looking for me? To catch you, I had to wander the desert for a whole damn year. To catch you, I had to wander the desert for a whole damn year. Out of nowhere, a sword flew in with terrifying force, pinning the red drake right to the ground as it shrieked in agony. Standing tall, he gripped his sword tightly. My whole goal was to use your heart to forge this blade, Grayan. His eyes gleamed sharply, his voice dropping cold. Now die. Grayan sank deeper and deeper into the red drake's heart. A fiery red aura of mana released gradually, wrapping itself around Grayan. Grayan absorbed every drop of mana inside, causing the sword to glow brightly. Daoden's gaze never left its upgrade process. Once it swallowed all the mana, Grayan seemed to put on a brand new, far more powerful look. He held it in his hand and admired it, a wicked smirk on his face. You've grown stronger again, Grayan. Suddenly, Zeon's voice came out of nowhere, catching his attention. Now you're standing there talking to a sword? Have you completely lost your mind? Luckily, he managed to crawl back up, thinking, taking down that drake though, this old guy is insanely powerful. Daoden replied like it was no big deal. You idiot, you're still breathing? By now, Zeon had regained his composure. Yeah, well, almost died. He recalled the moment he was thrown off the cliff edge, his mind going completely blank, unable to process a thing. A second later, he slapped his own face to pull himself together. Zeon thrust his fist forward, using mana to create a support cushion out of sand. He landed right on it, narrowly escaping death, and couldn't help boasting to himself, fuck yeah, survived again. Guess I'm not too shabby after all. Back in the present, he sat up to talk, thinking, getting beaten black and blue by the shockwaves from this crazy old man actually sharpened my reflexes. That's how I made it out alive. Daoden flashed a mocking, toothy grin. For an idiot, that's not half bad. With that, he hoisted Zeon up like a puppy. The boss is dead, and this dungeon is about to collapse. We need to haul us out of here. With a discontented look, he questioned him, why the hell are you grabbing me? Daoden's smirk gave zero reassurance. bringing on a strange, unsettling feeling instead. Sure enough, he hurled him violently right into a vortex. Catch you later, idiot. All he could do was cuss up a storm. Hey, you crazy old bastard. You're even worse than Park Manhwa. Before he even finished his sentence, he popped out in a completely different dimension. Turns out that vortex was a barrier portal. He shot out of it and tumbled onto the sand, coughing violently as he ate a mouthful of dirt. Where the hell is this place? Daoden strolled out casually right after. What kind of stupid question is that? We're out of the dungeon. The rift formed by the collapsing dungeon was our exit. His voice sounded weak and shaky. Then why couldn't we just walk out? But he completely ignored him, his voice dropping low. Listen close, idiot. His imposing figure towered over Zeon. I need your sand manipulation power. But with the pathetic state you're in, you're useless to me. So I'm giving you a choice. Pointing a hand down one path, he said, if you go this way, you'll reach Neo Soul. Go back if you want to stick to your old life. Then he pointed right at himself. Or you can come with me and become a slightly less pathetic idiot. Still clueless, Zeon asked before his brain could catch up. What are you talking about all of a sudden? If I go with you, for how long? Daoden grew even quieter. I don't know, it could be months, years, or even decades. We'll see when the time comes. He stood there dazed by his words, so make your pick right now. Daoden kept pushing him. The competitive spirit within him was violently torn. Head back home to his familiar, easy life, or gamble it all on a path with a 99% mortality rate? His firm, resolute tone forced him to hesitate. Come on, pick. Zeon let out a defiant laugh. A choice? Are you screwing with me? He thrust a finger forward in challenge. Old man, you've lost your marbles. As if he had just heard a joke, he mockingly scoffed. You're telling me to give up my home, my cozy bed, and my normal life just to wander around this scorching desert with you? But all he got back was Daoden's rock-solid determination. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. He let out a breathless sigh, sounding completely reckless. Then there's nothing left to talk about. Zeon quietly walked past him. I'm coming with you. His voice dropped low. I'm the type of guy who hates anybody who messes with me and won't rest until I pay back the debt. But right now, I'm way too weak to get my revenge. Then he looked back over his shoulder with a grin. And that includes you, old man. Standing before Daoden's massive frame, he rambled on. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met in my life. And I've got a gut feeling I'll never meet anyone stronger than you. He burst into a hearty laugh in response. That's exactly why I can guarantee you'll kick the bucket real soon. Clenching his fists, Zeon brimmed with intense resolve. I guarantee that if I follow you, I'll become stronger than anyone else. But Daoden just sneered in disdain. That confidence of yours is gonna make you regret it one day. With that, he turned sharply and walked away. Hurry up and follow me, idiot. We've got a long way to go. Zeon sprinted after him. I told you to stop calling me an idiot. The harsh desert heat filtered down through thin clouds, beating upon the unforgiving landscape. Covered in dirty sweat, Zeon snapped irritably. Can you slow down a bit? Reaching out a hand, he desperately grasped at straws. Hey old man, we've been walking on foot for 6 whole hours. Let's take a breather. All he got in return was Daoden's cold back and total silence. Clasping his head with both hands, he screamed at the top of his lungs. This is so dreary. Why aren't you saying a damn word? What are you, an edgy teenager? Why does your mood swing around like this? By now, his eyes had lost focus, looking completely dazed and too drained to utter another word. It's way too hot. 100 degrees, no, gotta be at least 120 degrees. His legs felt heavy as lead, dragging painfully through the sand. These damn sand dunes are making it impossible to walk. At this rate, if heatstroke doesn't get me, dehydration will. Zeon started to collapse. What the hell am I supposed to do? Daoden broke the silence. There really is nobody dumber than you on this planet. You've got power in your hands and you don't even know how to use 1% of it. He looked up to pry. What do you mean by that? Walking ahead, he explained, having sand manipulation powers and still struggling to walk on sand is just pathetic. Zeon yelled out again. You make it sound so easy. I literally just awakened a few days ago. He gave him a side eye. Zeon kept blabbering on, making Daoden grit his teeth in annoyance. I'm only an F rank. I'm not a high-tier awakener like you. He turned around and spat straight into his face. Stop talking such stupid nonsense. What does F rank or S rank even matter? Zeon stood there stunned as Daoden reamed him out. You think people are just born as S ranks? If someone like that actually exists, they were just lucky enough to be blessed by heaven. Zeon stood there stunned as Daoden reamed him out. You think people are just born as S ranks? If someone like that actually exists, they were just lucky enough to be blessed by heaven. Zeon stood there stunned as Daoden reamed him out. You think people are just born as S-ranks? If someone like that actually exists, they were just lucky enough to be blessed by heaven. Daoden waved his hand and softened his tone, so stop whining and use your brain to figure out how to use your power. What's the point of having intact limbs when your head is totally empty? He then placed a hand on Zeon's shoulder. It's your power. Daoden leaned in close and advised him sternly, of course you should know it best. How to break out of that thick head of yours to grow up, or how to use it, you've got to figure that out yourself. Touched to the point of tears, Zeon watched as the old man suddenly squeezed his shoulder tight. Got it, idiot? If you can't figure it out yourself, you might as well consider yourself dead. Zeon wailed in agony, begging, I get it, I get it. Loosen your grip. After that, he began training in earnest. The sand under his feet started swirling up, forming a sphere around him under his power. The sand under his feet started swirling up, forming a sphere around him under his power. Taking heavy steps, Zeon trudged forward. The sand keeps sinking up to my ankles. If I can fix this, it'll save me a ton of energy. He decided to try a different approach. What if I compress the sand to make it super hard? It worked, and he trotted across the surface. Awesome. My feet aren't sinking anymore. Walking is so much easier. But after just 3 steps, he had to stop and think, man, this drains mana like crazy. This isn't gonna work long term at all. Zeon lifted his feet and switched to another plan. Maybe I should try focusing mana into both feet instead. Doing this made walking noticeably smoother. He kept rambling in Daoden's ear, if I tweak this spot a bit, but this isn't really using my ability, is it? He just smirked slightly, waiting a moment. Hugging his knees, Daoden watched his passion as he kept testing without giving up. The perks of being young. He kept pondering to himself. His rank was still F, but in terms of output and mana control, he had to be top tier. While Daoden was lost in thought, Zeon suddenly cried out in joy. It worked. Sprinting ahead, he bragged, old man, look at this, look closely. I'm only using mana to control the sand touching my feet. Walking feels light as a feather now. Not stopping there, he thrust an index finger forward in mockery. An old guy like you probably can't even do this, right? Now I can walk completely effortlessly. What do you say to that? Caught off guard, the old man delivered a punch full of love straight to Zeon. There was a hint of annoyance in his voice. You're such a pain in the ass. Stop wasting your energy on useless tricks, or you're gonna die. Seeing him on the verge of passing out, Daoden urged him on. There's no time, hurry up. You idiot, breathe, come on, breathe. Seeing him on the verge of passing out, Daoden urged him on. There's no time, hurry up. You idiot, breathe, come on, breathe. Next to him, Daoden was devouring a delicious piece of meat. You're awake. Idiot, I'm busy as hell and I keep having to waste time on you. He still managed to squeeze out a few words in reply. It's not like we're on vacation here. You're completely covered in cuts and bruises. Zeon stared at the ugly thing rolling around in front of him. Is this dried meat? Daoden leaned back to rest. Eat while you listen to me. This goes back to when I was young. Chewing his food, his voice dropped. Back then, even if you were weak or useless, it wasn't like you couldn't survive. Protecting the weak was actually considered an honorable thing. Can you believe that? Zeon lay there quietly listening to Daoden's story, but as you can see, the world is different now. This kind of world might be normal to you, but I can never get used to it. He didn't forget to toss in a few more harsh words. If you want to die, just lie there comfortably, otherwise drag yourself up on your own 2 feet. Idiot. Zeon instantly sat straight up. Fine, I get it. I'm getting up. Zeon instantly sat straight up. Fine, I get it. I'm getting up. Watching his back, Zeon couldn't help but get lost in thought. I knew he's been around for a long time, but I didn't expect it to be this long. How many years and memories has this guy accumulated? He had plenty of questions brewing inside, but didn't dare say them out loud. And he's still sitting there gnawing on that piece of jerky. Is he using spit to soften the meat instead of chewing? Zeon popped the dried meat into his mouth, tossing a glare at Daoden. In a water-scarce desert like this, that's probably the only way. Why couldn't you tell me sooner? Man, chewing away, he reflected to himself, instead of giving me a fish, it feels like he's teaching me how to fish. Finished, he leaned back on his hands and stretched out comfortably. Not that I've ever seen a fish before. Finished, he leaned back on his hands and stretched out comfortably. Not that I've ever seen a fish before. In the quiet space, his voice blurted out, Old man, give me another piece. Rebuffed by Daoden again, he shut his mouth. Suddenly, Zeon let out a huge sneeze. Wrapping his arms around his shivering body, he had forgotten just how bone-chillingly cold desert nights get. Before going to sleep, Xian didn't forget to talk trash about him behind his back. And that senile old man over there, I couldn't sleep a wink because he was talking to his sword all night. Daoden just sat there rambling on about the past. My old friend, yeah, that spot's great. Xian cursed him under his breath. This guy is insane. Before he could even finish his thought, Daoden handed him the answer right in front of his face. His throat was parched dry. Is there no water around here at all? Xian gritted his teeth and swallowed his anger. Again, he sneaked a drink all by himself without saying a word to me. He immediately started licking the bandage wrapped around his arm. He's wringing out moisture from his clothes. No wonder all his gear was dripping wet while he slept. Xian switched from one arm to the other. Just you wait, crazy old man. Once I get stronger, I'll pay you back. Suddenly, Daoden called out to him, Hey, idiot. He snapped back furiously. I told you I'm not an idiot, I'm a dummy. Even the old man had to give up on a stubborn mule like him. Dummy, do you feel that? Bewildered, he paused to feel it. Feel what? Xian looked up at the sky. This tremor, His face began to tense up. There isn't just one of them. A second later, a pack of hyenas with blood-red eyes emerged, surrounding the two of them. Daoden seemed pretty familiar with these annoying pests, great horned hyenas. These guys usually hunt at night, but we ran into them at dawn. While offering advice, he didn't forget to jab at him. Dummy, think you can handle this yourself? Or do you need my help again? Right as he finished speaking, the pack of great horned hyenas lunged into the attack. He let out a firm, confident shout, because I'm gonna survive on my own. Grains of sand began gathering at his fingertips. He launched continuous attacks at the great horned hyenas, his eyes gleaming as he glanced behind him. He thrust his hands outward, creating sand arrows pointed straight at them. But harsh reality quickly extinguished his initial confidence. Damn it, why are there so many of them? Exhausted, he panted heavily, thinking, before they even bite me to death, I'll die from running out of mana first. I need a plan, I need a strategy. His brain started working at full capacity. Right now, raw strength isn't what matters most. I need to attack efficiently and conserve mana. He began to calm down and reflect. How can I fight while using the absolute minimum mana? Think. Unexpectedly, a great horned hyena lunged forward and bit into his arm. Xian thrashed wildly, cursing without hesitation, Hey, you damn beast! I was busy thinking. You cowardly piece of shit, biting me like that. Xian stared at the wound on his arm, gritting his teeth in fury. This crazy bastard put a hole right through my arm. It looks like a damn crater. Blurting that out made him freeze in his tracks. A hole. Meanwhile, the horned hyenas kept swarming over in massive packs to attack. They were closing in fast from behind, but Xian was still absorbed in his own muttering. Right, a hole. All I need to do is make a hole. A savage grin spread across his face right after. Just like this, Xian snapped his head up to glare wildly at the pack of horned hyenas. Right, why bother busting his ass trying to blow their entire heads off? Whether they exploded or just got a hole punched through them, dead was dead. Facing the dire situation, he didn't panic for a second. In battle, mana was his lifeline, so panicking and wasting it meant speeding up his own suicide. Xian kept shaping the sand into sharp spikes to strike, using the minimum amount of mana for maximum lethal efficiency. Fighting was all about calculating costs, after all. Then he turned his head to check on Daoden. Just look at that old man, taking his sweet time killing them one by one. Even with a horned hyena clamped right in his jaws, Daoden still burst out laughing. What's this? Nothing more than a tickle. With just a twist of his arm, the beast's entire jaw practically ripped right off. Damned dog. Single-handedly facing the whole pack of horned hyenas, Daoden didn't flinch one bit. Dogs that bite people can't be left alive, right? All of you die right here. On the contrary, he grinned with manic excitement. Xian had no time to dodge and could only throw his hands up to brace himself. Hold on, that old man is starting up again. Daoden closed in like a demon, swinging his sword down. It was pure slaughter. A slash of jet black mana unleashed with terrifying power. Its force was so massive it blew away the horde of horned hyenas, saving only Xian, who was barely holding his ground. It was finally over. His face was blank, completely drained of color. That old man has lost his mind. There are still people nearby, you know. The attack left behind a long gouge along with a massive crater. Xian stood frozen in place. Is he even human? Doing that without even using a skill? His expression loosened as he grew a bit more cautious. Damn it, I better watch my step from now on. One slip up and I'm toast. Meanwhile, Daoden was standing on the belly of a horned hyena. You're deafening me, woman. You're the pack leader, right? A leader running around in a panic like that. It thrashed around, aiming its horn straight at him, yet Daoden still took his time calmly sizing up his prey. This is for defense. Damn it, turns out you're B rank or higher. Suddenly, a burst of blinding power shot out from the sharp horn, blasting toward him. Zeon freaked out and screamed at the top of his lungs. Old man, watch out. But over on the other side, Daoden effortlessly caught the horn with his bare hand. Dazed once again, Zeon froze with his hand stuck in midair. Watch out for, what? He let go of the horned hyena's horn, rubbing his hand from the slight numbness. That actually helped stretch out my shoulder muscles. After that, Daoden cheerfully began gathering his mana. Alright, now that your eyes are done, go ahead and die. A single punch from him sent it straight to the afterlife on the spot. Zeon smirked as he ducked to avoid the shower of shredded flesh. Seriously, who the hell am I to worry about anyone else? I'd better just ignore that monster to save myself a headache. He threw his spoils of war over his shoulders. Old man, we're all done cleaning up, should we head out? Meanwhile, Daoden was still tinkering with the horn. You're still breathing, idiot? Zeon asked with a touch of curiosity. You planning to carry that around? The old man smiled back and replied, a horned hyena's horn is pretty useful. It has lightning elemental properties, so if you know how to craft it, it'll make a kick-ass weapon. Then Daoden tossed a dagger onto the animal pelt Zeon was wearing. Holding it in his hand, Zeon couldn't help but feel curious. It was a dagger. Meanwhile, the old man was still rummaging through his spatial storage. From now on, hunt your own food. Don't expect any help from me. Daoden held up a piece of meat and meticulously instructed him. Their muscle tissue is highly toxic, so eating it will kill you. But the meat around the ribs is non-toxic. Seeing Zeon's hesitant look, the old man urged him on. What are you staring at? It's almost daybreak, move it, idiot. The sunlight broke through, signaling the end of the long night, and Zeon resumed his journey. Yes, sir. The sunlight broke through, signaling the end of the long night, and Zeon resumed his journey. Yes, sir. His chest was piled high with cuts of meat from the horned hyena pack. A bit thirsty, but at least there was meat to eat. Life seemed to get a whole lot easier for him, plus his desert walking skill made traveling an absolute breeze. Zeon didn't even miss the chance to stand in front of Daoden and provoke him. Are you jealous? Once you get out, don't overexert yourself, okay? He had even learned how to dodge the old man's strikes. I actually dodged it this time. Who would have guessed his joy wouldn't last 3 seconds before he got beaten up again? Daoden's voice carried a hint of annoyance. What a lunatic. I'm walking until my legs fall off while he's completely fine, all because of that damn skill. Zeon still had enough energy left to stick his tongue out and mess around. Come on, I was just kidding. My throat's bone dry and he still shoves my face into the sand. Unwilling to back down, he called out after him. Hey, I'm talking to you, where are you looking? Wait a second, is that the smell of moisture? Zeon silently observed Daoden. I'm not imagining things, he's looking in that direction too. That means, he followed his gaze. Is it really right there? Just beyond this spot, an oasis. An unusually massive sand dune bulged out in the middle of the desolate desert. The two of them crossed over it together. Zeon cheered in excitement. It's real. A place I've only ever heard about in rumors. He stretched with relief, as if a huge weight had been lifted off his shoulders. An oasis at last. Immediately after, he suddenly slid down the slope to reach the bottom. Water. How many days has it been since I had a single drop in my stomach? Immediately after, he suddenly slid down the slope to reach the bottom. Water. How many days has it been since I had a single drop in my stomach? Overjoyed, Zeon sprinted forward with all his might. He finally found it. Without a second thought, he dunked his face straight into the water. The cool sensation instantly washed away the heat from his skin, making him feel immensely relieved. The water's soaking in, feels so damn good. Deep down, he silently lamented his suffering. In this damn desert over 50 degrees Celsius, after so many days, this cool feeling was finally soaking into his body. His eyes suddenly flickered for a moment. So happy, huh? From deep inside the pool, something seemed to glint right into his eyes. What's that shiny thing? Blinding, yet so warm. Shortly after, Xian suddenly felt his eyelids grow heavy as lead. Why am I feeling so sleepy all of a sudden? Right at that moment, Diodon's roar echoed in his ears. Wake up right now, you dumbass! He came charging over like a beast. The light beneath the pool grew brighter and brighter, because from beneath the deep water, a giant anglerfish was opening its massive maw and rising up. Daodon rushed in and grabbed his shirt with pinpoint accuracy, yanking his chest back with force. Just as the gigantic fish burst out of the pool, it snapped its jaws and missed, leaving Xian unharmed but completely terrified out of his mind. Daodon let go of him then, using the momentum to leap high into the air. He adjusted his grip to tighten his hold on Grayan a bit more, then brought it down with a fierce, fatal strike. The water in the pool roared under his sheer power, drenching Xian completely. Unbelievable, so this is what I've only heard stories about. Xian stared blankly at what was slowly emerging from behind the curtain of water. Daodon roughly tossed aside the fish fin he had just ripped off. That's a sandjaw monster. It uses the light on its forehead to lure prey, then gobbles them whole. At this point he stopped talking, his expression turning a bit grim. Sure enough, the very next second, Daodon delivered a brutal blow right to him. He reflexively touched his throbbing cheek while Daodon roared in fury. Did you throw everything I taught you straight into the trash? Only a complete idiot gets cocky just because he adapted a little bit. He barked angrily, fools like you are the first to die in this desert. You hear me? You bastard. Saying nothing, he just meekly lowered his voice. Yes, sir. Daodon let out a soft sigh, his tone softening slightly. Skin it. Hearing that, he was taken aback. Skin it? He explained in a low voice, it's a Sirank monster, and its belly hide is soft and tough. Makes a top-notch cloak. So carve it up and make a cloak out of it. Xian still naively asked, you need a cloak, old man? Daodon, who had just calmed down a bit, blew his top once again. Not for me, make it for yourself. You damn idiot, why is your brain getting dumber by the day? There's gotta be a reason. Did a couple of kids cast petrification on your left brain and erosion magic on your right brain or what? Xian felt like his ears were about to fall off, but he could only swallow his pride and say, I'm sorry. He kept his voice low. Even though it had changed a lot, this thing looked remarkably like a fish species that used to live on Earth. Daodon stopped arguing and turned straight around. You've probably never seen a fish before, so take a good look, or I'm leaving you to rot. Xian suddenly thought to himself, is that a fish? His eyes involuntarily widened a bit more. It's my first time seeing one. Fish really are terrifying creatures. He then pulled out his knife and slowly tried stabbing it into the fish's belly. Seeing this, Daodon teased lazily from the side, want me to scratch this fish's back for you? It'd probably be so thrilled it'd die and come back to life, wouldn't it? Am I right? Xian startled. Forget it, I can do it myself. Saying that, he looked up at it once more. A lot tougher than I thought. If that's the case, he'd try channeling a bit of mana into the knife next. Focus, gotta focus. He began meticulously making a firm slice, pushing mana into the blade to increase its cutting power. Xian opened his eyes wide, shaving the fin down thin to use as a sewing needle. He muttered to himself. And if I use the tendons from the meat as thread, his eyes instantly lit up. This is... But then he flopped onto his knees in gloom. Welp, I'm screwed. Daodon, watching from the side, chimed in with cruel mockery. You turned that fish into a pile of hot garbage. Unwilling to accept defeat, Xian swore loudly. Damn it, there's still plenty of materials left here. Let's try this one more time. Just like that, his one more time stretched all the way to midnight. The sky was pitch black and he couldn't see a thing, but in the end, he shouted in pure excitement. Done. It's finally a total success, he muttered under his breath. After failing miserably 8 times, it's finally done. With this quality, I could probably sell it, right? Welcome to Xian's fashion boutique. Daodon slowly got up at this point. Thinking his hard work was about to be snatched away, Xian snarled for dear life. No way. I don't want to. I'm not giving it to you. This is mine. But the old man just brushed him off coldly. Stop blabbering and eat this. He stared doubtfully at the giant thing in Diodon's hand. Ha! What is this? The old man replied calmly, sandworm bile is an extremely rare medicine. You're forbidden from leaving even a drop. Eat every last bite for me. Xian swallowed nervously. And if I don't finish it all? Daoden threw his head back and laughed out loud. Then you'll die. With that, he tossed it straight to him and urged, grab it quick. My arm's about to fall off. Deep down, Xian was fuming, thinking to himself, just let it fall off then. But being a coward, he only thought it in his head. After hesitating for a few seconds, he could only close his eyes and take a big bite. Fine, damn it, this is medicine after all. Tastes freaking horrific. But it beats being beaten to death. After chewing for a bit, his face stopped scrunching up. What's this? Xian lowered his head to take another big bite. It felt like eating clouds. Why am I not feeling full no matter how much I eat? He was now hyper-focused on eating. Well, thanks to that, I scarfed the whole thing down. Daoden suddenly spoke up. Hey, dumbass. He was now hyper-focused on eating. Well, thanks to that, I scarfed the whole thing down. Daoden suddenly spoke up. Hey, dumbass. Xian turned around, utterly confused. What the hell are you talking about? Right as he said this, he suddenly clutched his throat, threw his head back, and screamed. Xian realized a strange heat was bursting inside his own body. What is this? My chest feels so hot. It's not just hot. Xian realized a strange heat was bursting inside his own body. What is this? My chest feels so hot. It's not just hot. While he roared in agony, Daoden remained completely unfazed beside him. Endure it, idiot. He cast his gaze out toward the open water. Everything is just like this oasis, it'll soon vanish with the wind and sand as if it never existed. Daoden muttered in a low voice, but right there, the sandworms will be reborn and return once more. Life just cycles on like that. Xian was currently in so much pain he was thrashing around like a flopping fish. No, damn it. You old bastard, he cried out in agony, don't just sit there frozen. Please save me. The old man slowly turned his eyes toward him. Seeing him whining like that made Xian even more furious, and he yelled out, Old man. I'm gonna kill you. Daoden didn't bother arguing back and just half-closed his eyes. Shut your trap so I can sleep. He struggled through the gut-wrenching pain just like that. By the time he vaguely woke up, it was bright daylight. Where am I? Daoden appeared out of nowhere, looking down at him upside down. You awake? Dumbass. Waking up like that made Xian freeze in terror. Fuck. Scared the hell out of me. You scared me to death, man. The old man simply asked, sleep well, dummy? Hearing that, he pouted in dissatisfaction. Sleep? I passed out. You know that? Daoden replied nonchalantly, is that so? Then how does your body feel? Only then did Xian slowly check in on his body. My body feels the same as usual. Halfway through, he suddenly paused for a moment and tried clenching his fist. No, that's not it. Xian suddenly realized his body felt light as a grain of sand. His muscles were flexible as steel wire, and his mana surged like a violent storm. He stared in total disbelief. What is this? Why did I suddenly get so strong? What happened? Daoden revealed in a deep voice, thanks to that sandworm bile. He turned to look at him. Sandworm bile is an extremely precious medicine for those crossing the desert. It gives you the strength to endure the blazing sun and dust storms with the merchant caravans. It's worth an entire mana stone. Daoden continued in a satisfied tone, looks like the medicine worked better than expected. Congratulations, dummy. Xian was completely stunned. You actually gave me something that valuable? Daoden answered without a second thought, because you're too damn weak. If I went through the trouble of dragging you along, you better at least be of some use. Xian ran over, burst with excitement. Got it. I'm gonna make myself super useful. Versatile Xian. Reliable Xian. The old man cut him off in annoyance, shut your mouth and eat. You're not going anywhere until you finish this whole worm. The sun had risen higher, and the heat began to dominate once again. Daoden lightly touched the massive ribcage and muttered, this monster has way more meat than I thought. Been eating till our throats stuffed for 4 whole days. Finishing his sentence, he turned back to look. Shall we hit the road again? Dumbass. The corners of Xion's mouth curled up slightly, and he shouted out with immense enthusiasm, Roger that. Before they could get very far, a sandstorm violently swept in. Wearing his self-made cloak, Xion strolled forward at a relaxed pace, munching loudly as he walked. Sandstorm, huh? Thanks to my new power, it just feels like a cool breeze. Then he gazed intensely at Diadon's back, but that old man was still walking briskly without needing any rest. He muttered a few words to himself. He hasn't uttered a single word for days. Is he going through male menopause or something? Xion's doubts returned. We've been walking non-stop for 2 weeks. Does this old guy even know where he's going? A desert ant the size of a house suddenly popped up behind him, but he was too busy being annoyed. Damn it, this crazy old man isn't lost, is he? It let out a loud roar right in his ear, annoying him so much he mindlessly threw a punch without looking. Shut your trap, you little insect. Xion kept grumbling. How much further do we have to go? Just as he finished speaking, he paused slightly and turned his head back. Seeing the desert ant with its head caved in, Xion remarked casually, pretty tough, huh? He thought to himself with a touch of gloom, I was planning to just pass through here in peace, but looks like that's not happening this time. Xion felt a swarm of desert ants approaching all around them. These guys seemed serious. Lowering his center of gravity, he raised his hand. Alright, if you want to fight, then get over here already. Xion funneled a massive amount of mana and slammed his palm hard against the ground. If you're late, you're dead by that old man's hands. Come on. The ant swarm, which had been hiding beneath the desert sand, was exposed by his raging gale. Xion squatted down, pointed a finger forward, and praised them. Good, glad to see you listen so well. Sand bomb. Instantly, the sand around him exploded high into the air. Xion stood up, looking at the entire field of vision engulfed in sand. Anyway, a day with a sandstorm like this is pretty cool. Everywhere you look, it's just sand. The moment he turned his eyes and realized Daoden had already run off into the distance, he screamed out, Where the hell did the old man go? Old man! How could you leave me behind and go off alone? You jerk! The sand dust settled, revealing the desert ants inside as angry screeching echoed everywhere. Have you ever seen anyone live their life without a single friend or colleague? No wonder you're still all alone in your old age. He sprinted toward Daoden, whispering softly under his breath, If you can hear me, I'm sorry. Xion's eyes widened as he muttered, There's no way he heard that, right? His detection range was within a 10-meter radius. Normally, he was always on guard against his surroundings and never lowered his vigilance, so if a monster appeared nearby, he could react immediately. However, what he had just sensed was slightly different. What he detected this time felt more like sheer terror than a monster. Right after, a swarm of desert ants burst through the surface of the sand and charged out. Wiping the sweat under his chin, he couldn't help but curse loudly, Damn it, why are there so many? Where did this massive army come from? Xion glanced at the distant figure and shouted, Old man. These guys, their numbers are. Far in the distance, Daoden looked completely calm, quietly taking everything in. But in the blink of an eye, Xion raised his hand to gather mana, gritting his teeth as he muttered, No way, how much longer am I gonna keep calling out old man, save me like a little kid? Raising his hand, he raised sand dunes and aimed straight at the charging swarm of desert ants. There's no way the old man didn't sense them. If that's the case, this must be a test he set up for me. Xion glared intently at the desert ant swarm and shouted out, You damn bugs. Whether there's 1,000 of you or 10,000, bugs are still just bugs. He swung his arm, sending hundreds of sand arrows shooting forward, blanketing all of them. Xion gritted his teeth, relentlessly controlling the sand to assault the desert ant swarm. Suddenly, a desert ant broke through the barrage and lunged straight in front of his face. Xion pressed both hands against its body and flipped backward to dodge. Holy crap, I take back what I said. Why the hell are there so many of these bastards? With a fierce look on his face, he clenched his fist tightly and slammed it hard into the desert ant's body, roaring, Bullying me just because you have numbers? Cowards! Do you guys even have a conscience? Come at me one-on-one if you got the guts. Xion looked at the massive swarm of desert ants swooping down from above and cursed under his breath, Damn it. Immediately after, the sand under the ground blew wide open into the air. This is insane. It really is a literal ant nest. Thick dust rose high, swallowing the entire scene before his eyes. Xion stood atop a shattered boulder and launched himself straight up into the air. Squinting his left eye, which was bleeding non-stop, he looked at the desert ant swarm below. Feels like I just fell straight into a giant ant nest. Then Zeon turned his head to look upward and spoke, first things first, I gotta fly up high to scout the situation. Lucky for me, you bastards don't know how to fight in midair. Bracing one hand against the boulder beneath his feet, he turned back to see the desert ants stacking up on top of each other, chasing right behind his back. Utterly bewildered, he cried out, "Are you kidding me? Right? No way, how can this even happen?" A desert ant clamped onto one of Zeon's legs with its mandibles, letting out a screeching hiss. He was yanked down by its force, his entire body slamming hard onto the ground. Zeon let out a harsh cough as fresh blood welled up continuously. He quickly flipped over, pushing one hand against the ground as he tried to sit up. His whole body trembled uncontrollably as coughing fits kept racking his chest. He forced himself to lift his head and look into the distance. On the other side, Daoden had his arms crossed, completely indifferent. A faint cry echoed in his ears, "Old man." The corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing teeth that were clenched with all his strength. Zeon flashed a smirk, staring directly over at him. "Just keep your eyes glued on me and watch how I survive this." Looking at the sand shooting upward, Daoden replied out loud, "That's more like it, nice spirit, dummy." Watching the scene unfold before him in silence, the old man marveled, "Your ability is truly a blessing in this world turned to desert. You could definitely use it to live a life anyone would envy." Daoden narrowed his eyes, veins bulging viciously across his face. "But if that's all, then that's where your story ends." His voice echoed across the area, "Those blockhead idiots don't even understand why the world turned out like this, they just blindly chase after illusions." Thinking of mass-produced machines, Daoden muttered to himself, "An awakened person is ultimately someone who must learn, apply, and grow their skills on their own, not through some standardized, factory-stamped routine." Watching the sand continuously exploding and splashing everywhere, he thought to himself, "I still can't bring myself to forget." Before his eyes, scenes of buildings swallowed by a sea of fire appeared, the horrific tragedy from 100 years ago, an entire city engulfed in raging red flames. How helpless was I back then? Countless people died in vain right before my eyes, and with a roaring explosion, the flames quickly devoured all my colleagues, neighbors, and family members. Even my daughter was no exception. Daoden remembered the small hand of his daughter. "I couldn't protect a single thing. Like the most pathetic trash on earth, I lost everything right before my eyes." His eyes gently swept over the surrounding desert ants he was casually eliminating. "But you are different." Daoden looked over silently, his lips moving faintly. "You have the potential to become anyone. Dive right into it and cross the boundary between life and death." The corners of his mouth twitched up as he gritted out every single word. "You will become stronger, just like right now." A faint light gleamed in Zeon's eyes, a trace of madness flashing across his face. "You bastards feel it too, don't you? You're all about to die." All around him, the swarm of desert ants kept staring intently. Right after, along with his loud shout, sand from the ground gathered together. A super high-pressure compressed sand missile sounded like the simplest and crudest trick, but a sand missile launched straight into the swarm of desert ants gathered right in front of him. Watching it shoot forward, Zeon spoke out, "If I pour in gravity, wind power, and every bit of energy I have." He spread his arms wide with a face full of joy. Watching it blow up, its power will surge by dozens of times. Zeon looked straight ahead, so excited that veins bulged out on his skin. "With this move, you bastards are completely done for." He raised both hands to control the sand missile, thrusting it straight down. "Before I get any stronger, if you can't kill me, you're dead meat." In the distance, Daoden crossed his arms, his face clearly showing glee. "That dummy gets this hyped up over just that." On the other side, Zeon held his injured arm with one hand, his eyes full of vigilance as he watched the smoke and dust clear, revealing jagged deep craters in front of him. He clenched his fist tightly, letting out triumphant chuckles. Right as he was gloating, a large pair of mandibles clamped around his waist from behind. "Old man, you see that? I'm gonna slaughter all these bastards." Zeon gritted his teeth, glancing back with utter disbelief. "How is this possible?" Tilting his head back, he screamed out in confusion, "How could I not feel a single trace of its presence at all?" Zeon used his blood-stained hands to grab the mandibles clamping down on him. "Invisibility? How can low-level trash like you use high-tier skills like this? If that's the case, then this is poison." He gritted his teeth, his expression turning fiercely demonic as he yelled out, "No wonder. I kept feeling like controlling my power was way harder just now. Is it a poison that clogs up mana circulation points?" Zeon yelled angrily toward the front, "You absolute bastards. You dare pull a trick like this?" A claw struck heavily against the back of his head from behind, knocking him unconscious. A moment later, he opened his eyes in the dark, cursing internally, damn it. He glanced around his surroundings in confusion. Where the hell is this? You damn ants, is this the ant nest? Suddenly, Xian snapped his head up to see a larva rapidly crawling toward him. He stared at them uncertainly, as the surrounding larvae kept crawling continuously toward his arm. It used its sharp clamping mandibles to bite down hard on his arm. Xian lifted his head to look up at the rock wall, lost in thought. My body can't move at all anymore. At this rate, I'm gonna get eaten alive by them organ by organ. What do I do now? His vision gradually lost focus, slowly drifting shut as his heavy eyelids drooped down. Xian's heart filled with bitter unwillingness. Is it over? The life reel flashing before his eyes was just a larva crawling closer and closer, making tiny squeaking noises. His hand clenched tightly into a fist, smashing it to pieces with all his strength. Up on the rock wall, seeing this scene, the desert ant let out a piercing screech. Down below, Xian clenched his fist tight, letting out loud bursts of laughter as he cursed, "Fuck." He threw his head back and opened his mouth wide to roar. Not a single good memory came to mind. This is so damn unfair. I can't die a lame death like this. On his arm, 2 energy lines lit up brightly. You bastard ants. Immediately after, the ground exploded, blowing sand straight up into the air. Seeing this, the desert ants quickly gathered together, making signaling sounds. The ground beneath its feet also exploded violently, sending dirt and rocks flying everywhere. The rock wall was quickly engulfed in thick dust as large boulders kept blasting apart. Down below, Xian lowered his head, a series of sand missiles forming all around him. Xian looked down at his own arm. I just leveled up. The mark disappeared, and physical stamina along with mana are surging out uncontrollably. Gazing at the 2 bright lines on his arm, he asked himself uncertainly, did I evolve? Xian stared intently at his hand, muttering, compared to back when I was F rank, my current strength and mana are on a completely different level. Glancing over to the left, he added, even so. Xian was stunned as he stared at the giant, practically scratchless body of the Ant Queen. Not a single wound on it at all? Right after, seeing it charge straight toward him to strike, he leaped to the side to dodge. Xian pointed 2 index fingers at the Ant Queen, gritting his teeth as he shouted, that bastard smashed through the rock wall like it was a wall made of sand. Just how ridiculously strong is it? The sand missiles slammed heavily into the Ant Queen's body and exploded, but did 0 damage. Xian slammed his hands onto the ground to brace his body, crying out at the sight, are you crazy? Not even a single scratch? That old man really is a monster. He pushed so hard that veins popped on the back of his hands. At this rate, I won't be able to win. Xian stared blankly at the giant Ant Queen opposite him. No matter how hard I attack right now, I can't even leave a scratch on its body. He held his hands out in front as if sizing up its entire frame. Then I gotta use my brain. A way to beat an unbreakable set of armor. Right after, the sand beneath the Ant Queen surged up and gathered together. Don't break it, don't pierce it, rip it to shreds. The surrounding sand gathered like a thick rope, tightly binding its entire body. Xian watched the streams of sand pouring from his tightly clenched hands. Right, if I can't destroy it, I'll just twist that armor and strip it completely off. Bound tighter and tighter by the stream of sand, the Ant Queen let out a high-pitched screech along with a roar. A glowing orb of bright energy formed between its mandibles. Xian kept controlling the surrounding sand without stopping, aiming to trap the Ant Queen completely inside. Seeing that glowing orb, his mouth agape, he screamed, you crazy bitch, what the hell is this? Feeling like his eardrums were getting punctured, Xian gasped in realization. Low frequency? No, high frequency. At this rate, my body's gonna explode to pieces. The residual light from that glowing orb kept blasting toward where he stood. Xian lowered his head and gritted his teeth, his expression twisted in fury as he cursed, you bastard, you were hiding a move like this until the very end? White light flashed in his eyes as fresh blood kept gushing out. Fine then, let's go all out, you bitch. Staring straight at the Ant Queen in the distance, he yelled, let's see who dies first, me or you. Feeling the low frequency blasting deep into his body over and over, we'll find out right now. His eyes widened, completely bloodshot and demonic. Not until one of us drops dead. Come on, you bastard. A moment later, the flash of light in his hand broke off, and his entire body fell backward. His eyes were wide open, his face filled with sheer disbelief. What? What's happening? Falling backward reflexively, he thought to himself, I'm done for. I hit my limit a while ago. His vision gradually blurred, unable to control his body as he collapsed down. Why is this damn body so uselessly weak? Daeodon reached out and scooped his entire body into his arms. Honestly, you're so weak it's infuriating. The corners of his mouth twitched up into a teasing smirk. Sleeping here will give you a crooked mouth, kid. Idiot. Hearing that, Zeon called out to the old man with a face full of smiles, his weak voice echoing, "I'll let you have the final blow." Hearing these words, Daeodon couldn't help but laugh out loud. Just a cheeky brat after all. Looks like you're not completely useless. He turned his head to look at the Ant Queen's body, which was cut in two. The Ant Queen is C rank, way stronger than you. Even so, the fact that you didn't give up and dared to fight for your life is very commendable. You deserve to keep living. Zeon closed his eyes, resting his head against Daeodon's chest. I can't hear a damn thing you're saying. My eardrums are completely busted. Right after, the old man casually picked him up by one hand. Just busted eardrums, huh? Being held up by Daeodon, Zeon looked at him with a face full of confusion. Hey old man, where are you going all of a sudden? Turning around to look at the Ant Queen in the nearby rubble, the old man carried him over. Zeon pouted, staring at it as he asked in confusion, "What now?" He pointed a finger at the Ant Queen's egg, raising an eyebrow as he looked up. The old man looked over with a smirk, placing one hand on a rock wall carved with words. Daeodon placed his hand on the stone slab engraved with the words, "Eat it, it's medicine." Seeing this, Zeon felt suspicious. What the hell is this? He really wants me to eat that? That thing? His eyes widened as he looked at the Ant Queen, thinking, how the hell am I supposed to eat that? Zeon raised his head, looking up to probe, "Old man, just asking to be sure after eating this, I won't get tortured to madness like when I ate the sandworm bile, right?" Daeodon glanced off in another direction, answering nonchalantly, "Eating that will probably kill you outright." Seeing his mouth moving, Zeon was going crazy inside. Damn it, I can't hear a single word he's saying. In the end, accepting his fate, he opened his mouth and bit down on the Ant Queen. Whatever, I probably won't die right away. Swallowing it down his throat, he thought to himself, I don't even know what strawberries taste like. But right after, his face lit up with excitement as he looked up and praised, "Hey, what is this? It tastes friggin' amazing." His eyes widened, blood vessels popping continuously. Got any more of these, old man? Feeling sharp spikes sprouting from inside his body, Zeon stammered out, "Old man, what the?" He lowered his head, feeling his body changing as his internal organs flipped, meaning his guts were getting twisted and flipped upside down. Ant Queen eggs were extremely toxic, eating just a tiny bit was enough to turn a person's internal organs inside out. In other words, whoever ate it would have their internal organs shredded by spikes and flipped upside down until they vomited from the feeling of their guts tearing apart and died. Holding his head with both hands, Zeon screamed out wildly, "No! What the hell is this? What the hell did you just feed me?" Daeodon picked at his ear, frowning in annoyance. "You're too damn noisy. If you want to survive in this crazy world, get used to it." Puffing out his cheeks, Zeon couldn't help but snap back, "How the hell am I supposed to get used to something like this?" Spitting out a large mouthful of blood, he cursed in anger, "Damn it!" Zeon stared at his blood-stained hands. This trash life. I truly believed I'd finally found someone I could trust. The scene around the campfire with Daeodon flashed in his mind, and he thought to himself, in the end, I really am just a total idiot. Daeodon bowed his head, cold sweat streaming uncontrollably down his face. He stood frozen, watching the boy's entire body collapse onto the ground. Daeodon reached down and lifted the queen ant's severed lower body to inspect it. Now then. After that, he shoved his hand deep inside, searching through it. Daeodon's hand reached deep into its body, quickly rummaging all around. After a moment, he grabbed the queen ant's mana stone and yanked it out. With a huge grin across his face, he stared at the glowing stone in his hand. A monster's mana stone really is on a whole different level compared to the ones from the quarry. I hit the motherlode this time. He quickly tucked the mana stone into a pouch at his side, looked around, and made a decision. Looks like this ant was pretty useful, so I might as well gather up everything. Daeodon was startled in shock when he saw Grayan emitting a faint glow. He glanced to the side and muttered under his breath, "My old friend." Looking at Zeon lying flat on the ground, Daeodon added, "Yeah, I know, but there's no other way. The weak die, that's simply his fate." With that, he quickly pulled Grayan out of the ground, intending to turn around and leave. Daeodon still didn't turn back. "You know as well as I do, we don't have much time left." After a long silence, Xian stared at the fresh blood in front of him and asked in sheer disbelief, "What? I'm still alive?" Right then, Daoden leaned in real close with a massive grin on his face. "Hey, you awake? You idiot!" Dust and sand instantly erupted into the air, completely swallowing everything up inside. He waved his hand, scolding with an annoyed look on his face, "You brat, what the hell are you doing kicking up all this dust?" The idiot raised his head to look up, slightly raising an eyebrow to double-check. "Really?" Looking at the sand rockets surrounding Xian, he spoke up, "Are you actually being serious right now? You idiot!" Daoden stared at them with total calm as they aimed straight at him. "Hey, you idiot, stop throwing a fit and just..." Xian raised his hands, controlling the sand to attack Daoden relentlessly. "Why?" Agitated, he watched the streams of sand pouring in from everywhere without stopping. "Why were you trying to kill me?" The sand around them surged wildly, accompanied by his desperate interrogations. "Why the hell did you do it?" He swung his hand forward, sheer determination flashing in his eyes. "I will never forgive you." From beneath the ground, sharp stone pillars rapidly spiked upward into the sky. Sand under Xian's control rushed in from all directions, shattering those stone pillars to pieces. He kept his hands raised, continuously unleashing attacks toward Daoden. Daoden maintained his stance, raising a hand as a huff escaped his breath. He lifted his head, glared over, and asked back in a cold voice, "I asked you why you wanted to." Daoden roared out in anger, "God damn it, you idiot, what the hell are you doing?" Crossing his arms over his chest, he stood behind the cluster of stone pillars and teased, "I know queen ant eggs have venom that scrambles your head, but can't you use your brain for a second?" Xian thought in total disbelief, "What the hell? He just stood there and took my entire assault? He doesn't even have a single scratch on him." Daoden knitted his brows together and calmly explained, "You idiot, if I wanted you dead, I could have ended your life with a snap of my fingers. Why would I go out of my way to poison you? What would even be the point of doing all that extra work?" Hearing that, he fell silent for a long moment, stammering, "Well, that actually makes sense." Right after that, the old man's voice rang out again, "Queen ant eggs are indeed a potent toxin that turns your internal organs inside out, but on the flip side, it also helps purge all toxins and impurities from your body. Depending on how it's used, it can be a deadly poison or a top-tier elixir. It washed away all the filth inside you." Xian stood completely still, listening to Daoden's words. "Then fill those empty spaces with mana. When you attacked me just now, you felt it yourself, didn't you?" Hearing his words, he immediately clenched his fist and felt that his mana capacity had already tripled or quadrupled. Once he finished, he looked over at the old man with a face full of anxiety. Then he suddenly threw himself forward and hugged Daoden tightly. "I'm so sorry for doubting you. I must have had a short circuit in my brain earlier. How could I ever doubt you?" The old man looked down and gently replied, "All right, you absolute super idiot. I get it, so let go of me already. Why is a grown guy clinging onto someone like this? Disgusting." With tears streaming down his face, Xian gritted his teeth to hold back his sobs. "I'm not crazy about it either. Wait, I can hear it now. It even cured my ears." Daoden looked down with a laugh and urged, "You idiot, you're all grown up and still crying like a baby. Let go of me already." He kept his head down and refused, "No way, I'm not done yet." The old man felt it and quietly replied to himself, "I know, I understand. My old friend." Honestly, if he really had died earlier, it wouldn't have been surprising at all. Xian raised his face covered in tears and snot to observe. That was way too close. I guess he won't hold a grudge anymore, right? That cover-up story was actually pretty slick. Daoden looked at his face and muttered in his head, "The fact that he survived is just because he's strong." He clenched his fist so hard that blue veins popped out. "If he gets strong too fast, he'll be useless to me too." This really was a gamble placed on a pile of trash. Daoden grabbed him with one arm. "All right, ready to go?" In his heart, he softly whispered, "You idiot, don't you dare forgive me." "Dummy," he frowned, staring intently at the old man. "Why are you grabbing me again?" The corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a row of perfectly even teeth. With a massive grin on his face, he raised a single finger and pointed up. "We don't have much time, so we'd better get the hell out of here real fast. Don't you agree?" Xian rolled his eyes back, cold sweat pouring down his face. "Damn it, don't tell me you're planning to." Above ground, several scorpions were happily gathered together when suddenly an explosive surge of power shattered the earth, shooting straight up into the sky. Carrying him with one hand, Daoden laughed out loud. How's that, you idiot? A whole lot faster, right? He angrily raised his fist and screamed, fast my ass. Can't you walk like a normal human being for once? The old man turned his head and shouted back, then don't go sleeping like a log for 4 straight days. Daoden frowned, glancing off to the side. A weakling like you is never gonna get married at this rate. Wait, what the hell is that? Hearing that, Xian also followed his gaze and looked over. What is it this time? Nothing can surprise me at this point anyway. His eyes widened in absolute shock, and all he could do was let out a gasp of astonishment. Seeing the colossal figure of Archilon, Xian shouted at the top of his lungs, holy crap, what on earth is that monster? Xian stared intently in that direction, trying to figure it out. Even from at least 30 kilometers away, is that monster really still that massive? Daoden let go of his grip, rapidly dropping down to the ground. They just can't give us a single moment of peace, can they? That's the mobile fortress Archilon. Hearing that, he repeated in confusion, Archilon? Looking at its gigantic legs, the old man confirmed, yeah, it's a B-rank turtle-type monster, but its defense far surpasses even an A-rank. People modified its shell and domesticated it to use as a fortress transport. Jaw agape with sheer shock, Xian asked, are you telling me someone is actually riding that insane monster? Daoden shot him a side glance and confirmed, that's right, take a good look, you idiot. He looked up with his mouth wide open, hearing the old man's voice echo in his ears, the world is a massive place. Crossing his arms over his chest, Daoden said, and out there are freaks capable of controlling a massive beast like that. He stared at the towering Archilon as it drew near. Engrave that image deep into your mind. From atop its body, a figure pushed off Archilon's shell, using the momentum to leap downward. In the blink of an eye, he landed right in front of the two of them. The voice of the man wearing glasses rang out. It was so far away that I wasn't really sure. But sure enough. Standing beside him in shock, Xian wondered, what is this? Without turning his head, Daoden commanded, stay put, you idiot. The man with glasses narrowed his eyes slightly to take a closer look. Long time no see, Daoden. Daoden mocked his old acquaintance in the barren desert. Long time no see, and it looks like you've lost even more teeth than before. Pavilsa, the old man named Pavilsa, let out a long sigh. Good lord, you really are an anomaly, over 100 years old and still as nimble as ever. Daoden let out a careless smirk. Anyway, what brings you here? This isn't your turf. Pavilsa replied, there's a bunch of bottom-feeding scavengers causing trouble. Xian looked back and forth between the two overlords, his face full of confusion and anxiety as Daoden said, running away from a bunch of scrap-collecting scavengers? Growing old is a total waste of food on you. Pavilsa snapped back sharply, that's called wisdom, unlike a crude, ignorant brute like you. In his head, the main character questioned the sheer absurdity of their power. Wait, shouldn't people normally get weaker as they age? Why the hell are these old geezers so ridiculously strong? Pavilsa nonchalantly blew a piercing whistle as the massive, dusty silhouette of a giant beast began to rise behind him. Forget it, what's the point of talking to you anyway? Even the sandy ground sank and shifted violently, causing Xian to look up with wide, golden eyes full of shock as a gigantic shadow blanketed over him. Whoa, that is insane. The giant beast, the size of a whole mountain, slowly leaned down, completely blotting out the tiny figures standing before it. Xian backed away in pure terror, sweating profusely under the monster's overwhelming gaze. I'd better just keep my mouth shut right now. Pavilsa glanced down at the trembling figure with mild curiosity. That's a face I've never seen before. Is he a star rank? Daoden let out a chuckle. Well, I was thinking about the environment, so I picked up a piece of trash. With a boisterous laugh, ha! A guy like you actually bringing someone along. The world must really be coming to an end. Stepping inside, Xian stood with his mouth agape in absolute disbelief. He stared at the unfathomably massive, bustling civilization built directly on the turtle's back. Whoa, what kind of crazy-ass place is this? Walking through the vibrant, sun-drenched streets of the mobile city, Pavilsa led the way while Daoden explained their surroundings. That's the Pavilsa clan. When the main character asked if they were all blood relatives, he added, yeah, they're all descendants of Pavilsa, a bunch of fools who think they're the chosen ones. In reality, they couldn't accomplish a damn thing without me protecting them. Glancing back over his shoulder, Pavilsa glared defensively. Humph, what do you know about our clan to be running your mouth like that? Daoden delivered a cold hard truth. I know more than enough. They're just burdens that I'll abandon the moment you die. Isn't that right? Pavilsa lowered his gaze. We can talk about that later. Inside a magnificent, lavishly decorated vault, Daoden sat comfortably at a luxurious table as Pavilsa spoke. Alright, let's inspect the goods first. Daoden flashed a confident smirk. Be my guest. Then he raised his arm, opening a pitch-black, swirling spatial portal right in the center of the room. A mountain of priceless treasure, golden trophies, rare gems, and massive monster skulls poured violently out of thin air, leaving Xion completely speechlessly stunned. Whoa, that's insane. What is all this stuff? How many lives have you taken? He spoke up in a voice that sent chills down his spine. You'll be counted among them soon enough. Leaning over, the main character demanded answers. Anyway, old man, I've been wondering from the start, what kind of magic type are you? Where are you pulling all this stuff from? Leaning over, the main character demanded answers. Anyway, old man, I've been wondering from the start, what kind of magic type are you? Where are you pulling all this stuff from? He immediately yelled at the old man's face. Would it kill you to just tell me? Glaring back with absolute authority, Daoden instantly retorted, Oh, daring to talk back to me? You've got some nerve, kid. Meanwhile, Pavilsa carefully examined a glowing monster phone. Oomph, as impressive as ever. Every single piece is a top-tier, flawless item. He looked over his shoulder and added, cut the flattery. How much are you paying for it? Should I pay in mana crystals? Right as he finished speaking, seeing Daoden draw his greatsword, old man Pavilsa quickly said, Alright, that's enough, calm down. You don't have a single sense of humor. Since you don't have much use for mana crystals, what do you want instead? Daoden's expression hardened as he stated his exact price. A chestplate made from the corpse of the Queen Wolf and Lord, and a subdimensional spatial item as well. Pavilsa questioned the unusual demand. What on earth are you going to use a chestplate for? And you already have more than enough subdimensional storage capacity. Reaching out, Daoden grabbed him right as he took a sip of water. It's not for me, this idiot is gonna use it. A deep sense of astonishment caused Pavilsa's eyes to widen, realizing the unprecedented bond that the lone wolf had formed. Pavilsa projected his voice with absolute, authoritative command. As the heavy doors slowly creaked open, Kelly's golden eyes lit up with pure, unadulterated awe. Wow, a striking woman walked gracefully into the grand vault. Did you call for me, Grandpa? That body instantly paralyzed his heart. She's so beautiful. The old man asked further, do you still have that subdimensional bracelet you made before? Tapping her chin thoughtfully, she continued, I don't have the bracelet anymore, but I do have a protective gauntlet. The magic engraved on it was such a success that I kept it very carefully. Pavilsa issued a non-negotiable order, that gauntlet, give it to this kid. Instantly flaring up, Kelly shouted, what? That precious thing? Throwing his head back, Daoden let out a booming laugh, waha. So that little girl turned out to be an enchanter witch after all? Kelly cringed before his intimidating presence, eek. Hello, senior. You still look as energetic as ever. Daoden spoke right up, an enchanter which is a rare profession even in Neo Soul. As expected of Pavilsa's granddaughter, she's acquired quite a useful ability. She stammered, completely overwhelmed, yes, I suppose that's good then. Pavilsa dismissed her from the room to ease her discomfort. You'll probably feel uncomfortable here, so go on ahead and tell Noelle to craft a chestplate. Glaring at him, she snapped her command, understood. Hey, you, follow me. I'll give you the gauntlet. The main character, completely smitten, eagerly trotted right behind her, a goofy, love-struck grin plastered all over his face. Stopping abruptly, Kelly looked back over her shoulder with a suspicious glare. What is your relationship with that monster? Xion brushed off the terrifying association, monster? Oh, you mean that old man? I just happened to run into him by chance, and now I'm just getting dragged all over the place by him. Her face distorted into a mask of pure panic and utter disbelief. What? By chance, and you're still alive while being dragged all over the place by him? And by that monster of all people? A deeply empathetic, silent realization dawned on him. Ah, this woman gets it, she sees it crystal clear. A traumatic memory flashed by, showing Daoden like a literal bloody demon viciously tearing monsters apart with his bare hands. As expected, ripping monsters apart with bare hands really is the best. She must be just like me. Kelly offered a piece of advice. Well, anyway, you'd better be careful. That thing is a monster in human skin. Nodding with exhausted understanding, he completely agreed. Stopping proudly in front of a sturdy metal door, Kelly placed both hands on her hips with a triumphant smile. Yup, this is my workshop. Try not to be too amazed, because you're about to see something like this for the very first time in your life. Xion's eyes widened completely in pure astonishment. This thing is. Are all of these items? She boasted with relentless passion. That's right, every single one of them is a masterpiece I made with my own hands. Except for the ones made from dungeons, these are absolute masterpieces. Besides, do you see this? The exquisite fusion of armored starfish frame and adamantium doesn't just have subdimensional space, it even has a self-repair function. It's the ultimate masterpiece among masterpieces, he asked eagerly. Self-repair means it heals itself? She detailed its terrifying potential. Exactly. It's even infused with the fire attribute. Depending on what kind of fire attribute item you equip it with, it'll become an unimaginable monster of a gear. Staring at the flawless piece of equipment, a genuine hint of guilt crept into his voice. Is it really okay for me to take something like this? Annoyance flared across her face. Ugh, well, Grandpa told me to give it to you, so, and you can only insert an item into it once. So once it's done, you can't take it out. Keep that firmly in mind. Reaching out greedy hands with a sly grin, I'll keep that firmly in mind. I gladly accept it. A fierce tug-of-war ensued, and panic instantly erupted. She flat out refused to let go of her masterpiece. I can't give it to you. I won't give it up. There's no way I'm handing over my precious passion project to a total nobody like you. The main character aggressively yanked it back with all his strength. What the hell do you expect me to do? Sorry, but this thing belongs to me now. The passion project she had nurtured so carefully was now. Rumble, rumble. A sudden, terrifying earthquake violently shook the entire workshop, instantly putting an end to their chaotic brawl. Freezing in place, he looked around anxiously, wondering if he should give it back. Her eyes widened in pure terror. No. That's not it. This cry from Archilon means the fortress has been hit. He looked around frantically. Who hit the fortress? The severe vibration made everyone present in the city look up with a grim foreboding. Pavilsa narrowed his eyes and spoke up. These guys are relentless. Those scum scavengers. A massive army of masked men seeking absolute destruction appeared. The main character asked her, are those the scavengers? Kelly confirmed, yeah, they're a notorious gang that's been expanding their territory real fast lately. Cold sweat ran down his pale face. Who exactly are they? She frantically explained the immense threat they posed, the Black Shark Pirates. Their captain is a D-rank awakened psycho, and every single one of his high-ranking officers is an awakened scavenger. They don't just rob people, they're complete sociopaths who kill without even blinking an eye. Xion was surprised upon hearing that. What? Even though he's only a D-rank? Screaming with all her might, she pushed the large door open. Grandpa and Senior are here. Those bastards are. Pavilsa was completely calm. I see them too. Kelly hurriedly asked if they should move Archilon, and he answered immediately. They'll catch up to us in the blink of an eye. Now is the time to fight. Hearing that, Kelly answered in a hurry, understood. I will gather the warriors right away. But right then, old Daoden's voice cut in. Not you guys, we will handle this. Kelly stammered and asked what he meant, so old Daoden added, hey kid, you're taking the lead in this fight. Pointing at his own chest nervously, the main character was completely frozen, his golden eyes wide with fear as the old man mercilessly backed him into a corner and forced him to fight. Yeah, kid, you already took the treasure, so are you planning to do nothing? Don't you have to pay them back? Xion hurriedly replied, but how am I supposed to beat a D-rank? The old man cut him off immediately. So what? Is the idiot scared? A blank white space, paralyzed by the challenge. A moment later, standing all alone on the sand, the small silhouette of the main character prepared to face the incoming storm under the apocalyptic desert sky. Damn it, seriously damn it. I can't believe I fell for such a cheap provocation. He definitely knows what he's doing. That old man is extremely cunning. Phew, calm down, I don't have time for this, they'll be here in about 5 minutes. I need to find a way to beat an awakened whose rank is higher than mine. I need to find a way to beat an awakened whose rank is higher than mine. I'm asking if it's really fine to leave that kid alone? Didn't you say he's only an E rank? Daoden completely accepted the brutal rules of the wasteland. If he loses, he dies. That's all there is to it. Pavilsa shook his head. You're as extreme as ever. Then he thought to himself, even a tiger cub can be bitten to death by dogs when it's small. A flash of deep curiosity gleamed in Pavilsa's eyes, wondering if the boy truly possessed the inner beast required to survive. Pavilsa thought, however, if that kid can show his fangs. Suddenly, he shouted out to the main character, "Hey kid, just remember this one thing." But those words failed to reach the main character, like a fleeting breeze passing by. Charging endlessly through the suffocating sandstorm, the bloodthirsty scavengers finally closed the gap. Their vice-captain shouted out to the leader, "We've finally caught up to them." "Captain, should I tell them to pick out the useful ones to sell?" A wild grin broke across the captain's face. "Don't cut off all their limbs and throw them to the Archilon as food." The gang leader launched a brutal assault, charging forward together with his ruthless crew. "Engrave it deep in their heads that we are the Black Shark Pirates. It's time for a slaughter." "Man, I'm really concerned about how they can call themselves pirates when there's not a single drop of water around, you guys." The massive cavalry force galloped across the desert dunes. A heavy hoof was sucked down into the sand, falling into a strange sinkhole. The pirates screamed in panic amid total chaos. "What the hell is this?" The entire desert floor split open violently, mercilessly swallowing up the camels and their riders as chaos reigned supreme. The sand is splitting apart. Fall back, fall back." Completely destroying the pirates' formation in the blink of an eye, he landed safely on the ground. Gawain glared with wide eyes. The sand had moved. A subordinate spoke up behind him, "Captain, are you all right?" Rushing to his leader's side, he screamed, "Klein, did those bastards lay a trap?" She answered immediately, "No, there's definitely no trap. Could one of them be?" Without a word of warning, a terrifying dark figure materialized right behind the female pirate, causing her eyes to widen in pure, unadulterated terror. "Subordinate my ass. Since when?" Roaring with ultimate fury, the captain charged forward aggressively. "You bastard, get your hands off her!" Stab. A colossal, razor-sharp sand spike burst forth destructively through the woman in a blinding explosion of force, spraying dark blood all over the battlefield as the captain stood watching in horror. Gawain's exposed eye twitched violently, paralyzed by pure brutality as the main character stood completely drenched in a ghastly shower of blood behind his collapsed victim, his face entirely shrouded in pitch-black shadows. His voice was a cold whisper, "Next." Nonchalantly wiping the fresh blood off his cheek with the back of his hand without a shred of hesitation or mercy, he exploded with a terrifying red aura. Another guy swung his katana down ruthlessly in a rage, trying to split him in two. The brilliant red slash aimed straight at the main character's head. Lightly hopping out of the way, he dodged the massive wave of energy, letting it harmlessly carve a deep fissure into the desert floor. His speed left the man in utter shock. "What the hell is that guy? Did he just dodge my slash? No, did he block it?" The captain's voice echoed over, "Mashimoto." Looking down, massive swirling sand dunes erupted violently underneath, turning the battlefield into a death trap. He aggressively brought his red glowing sword down in an arc. The leader screamed in pure bloodlust, "You stupid kid, what kind of trick is this?" When he threw a punch at him, he only hit sand. Blowing away the sand, the captain blurted out. When he threw a punch at him, he only hit sand. Blowing away the sand, the captain blurted out, "You think a little sand can stop me? Mashimoto. This guy looks like he's controlling something." A pincer attack. Suddenly, dark, thick drops of blood quietly splashed onto the sand right in front of him, making the captain freeze in his tracks. A blinding flash of violently compressed sand completely erased Mashimoto's head, killing the pirate instantly. Turning around slowly, his golden eyes gleamed with a cold, terrifying brilliance amidst the blowing dust. A vivid flashback pulled him back to his final lesson. The booming voice of old man Pavilsa echoed in his mind, "Hey kid, listen up. You're probably more worried about killing a human being than fighting a D-rank. But remember this well, those bastards aren't human." Zeon asked back, "They're not?" To which the old man immediately replied, "That's right. They get a kick out of killing people. They torture and slaughter for no reason at all. They take pride in violating women and murdering children. Over 200 people have died by their hands. Do you really think creatures like that are human?" Standing firm in the present, he fully accepted his role as the executioner. Completely consumed by an insane fury, the captain channeled his exploding red aura. His eyes bulged with pure hatred. "You bastard. You son of a bitch." A barrage of destructive, super-compressed sand bullets rained down violently on the charging captain. Defending brutally with a spherical shield, the leader screamed defiantly, "You can still fire those off? You think this pile of sand is enough to beat me? You piece of trash, I won't let you die in peace. I'll slice you piece by piece and feed you to the monsters. I'll make you listen to your family's screams while you get eaten alive. I'll make you beg for death." Glancing back over his shoulder under the golden sky, he asked one final question, "Hey, are those your last words?" His bloodshot eyes went insane, twitching violently as he was completely blinded by his own boiling bloodlust, gripping the hilt of his weapon tight. His glowing eyes locked onto the monster in front of him, delivering a cold, merciless verdict, "You trash." Gawain gasped in desperation on the sand, reflecting on his fallen comrades. "Ha, calling us trash. Klein, Mashimoto, they were all people I recognized. They would never be defeated by some amateur." Just what kind of power was this kid using? Clenching his scarred fist, he glared with unadulterated fury. "I'm not playing your trick games anymore. Why don't you show the real power hidden in the sand? If you're a real awakened, stop hiding and face me." A destructive vortex of crimson energy tore violently across the battlefield, leaving Gawain frantically searching through the swirling dust before slamming his fists together in total shock. "What now?" It vanished. "Where is it?" Before his eyes, there was only endless sand. Right at that moment, the main character swung a slash at his neck, but only the shattered clang of his sword rang out. He was shocked as the man's red aura flared up brilliantly. Did he anticipate my attack? Did he lure me in? Gawain glanced back over his shoulder with a smirk. "You're finally within my attack range." Bam! He slammed down on his chest brutally, pinning him battered to the ground. "You're not even a proper close-quarters fighter, yet you closed the distance like that. You don't know a damn thing, do you? A single mistake in battle costs you your life. I'm gonna make you feel every single hit. This one's for Mashimoto." An earth-shattering explosion of crimson magic energy detonated violently at point-blank range right on top of him, sending massive shockwaves tearing through the desert floor. "This one's for Klein, for Aleya, for Ezreal, for Maras, for Chavaria, and for Kael. No matter what your ability is, it's useless once I've got you in my grip. Blame your own weakness and die." Suddenly, his arm was caught by another pair of hands. "What?" "I'm holding onto you tight." Behind him, a pair of hands emerging from the sand was holding him back. Gawain looked at those hands, his face contorting into an angry growl. He took off his gauntlets to escape. "The damn slippery rat." Right now, the main character repeatedly hurled grains of sand at him. Knocked back into the distance, he thought to himself, "A fatal mistake, I panicked and let him go. But this wound, the power behind it has clearly dropped. His attacks have obviously lost momentum. Those gauntlets definitely amplified his power. He's definitely a wind type, a rare one among magic types. He's using sand to add physical impact." Flaring with a fresh, overwhelming aura of red combat magic, Gawain charged frantically toward him. "I've figured out all your tricks. Now that you've lost your gauntlets, you're not so tough anymore. A magic type without an amplifier? You think you can beat a close-quarters combat type up close?" A colossal, razor-sharp sand spike burst violently from the ground right behind the captain, impaling him ruthlessly through the chest, and launching him into the air as his eyes rolled back in utter shock. "He aimed for my back?" Staring in absolute terror at the person now standing with a bloodthirsty smirk. "You bastard, you finally lowered your guard." Gawain cursed with his final breath. "You son of a bitch, you used the same trick on me again? Wait, he doesn't have his gauntlets. It's impossible for a magic type to channel this much power through sand without an item amplifying their ability. That's simply impossible. This kid, don't tell me he's an abnormal? That can't be right. An ability that controls sand and manipulates the very earth itself, it shouldn't exist." He was slowly swallowed up by the sand until all life left his body. The swirling sands settled peacefully. Pavelsa watched from afar, his weathered face completely frozen in pure amazement. That kid can control sand, the entire earth is his weapon and his shield. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Besides, Gawain was a scavenger with extensive combat experience. If they fought head-on, his life would have been in danger. This kid used his status as an anomaly to lure his opponent into lowering his guard, waiting for the perfect opening. The experience required to make those decisions, he got it all purely from instinct. no matter how absurd that sounds. He pulled it off right in the middle of battle. He turned around and spoke in a low voice. That kid is no ordinary tiger cub, that's for sure. Daoden, where on earth did you find a monster like that? After the battle finally came to an end, the scene shifted to Zeon. His condition was far from good, his face was swollen and bloody, and his body was bruised from head to toe, with even the slightest movement causing sharp pain deep in his bones. Even so, a faint smile formed on his lips as he recalled the fight. That was a close one, he muttered, gasping for air. That was seriously dangerous. The memory of Gawain's terrifying punches was still vivid in his mind. Nobody knew better than him that he had almost lost a single hit in the wrong spot and it would have been lights out. As he spoke, Zeon wiped the blood off his face and chuckled softly. But the old man will probably praise me for this fight. Yeah, right. Despite enduring all kinds of pain, Zeon seemed oddly satisfied. However, before he could relax, something happened that immediately caught everyone's attention. A new path opened up. The entire area seemed to shake, revealing a previously hidden passage that no one had ever seen before. Zeon stared in surprise, but before he could say anything, an angry voice echoed across the area, "You complete idiot! How dare you turn back after finishing the fight?" It was Daoden. The veteran warrior's face was bright red with rage, his eyes glaring straight at Zeon. Zeon blinked, completely bewildered. Huh, Daoden? At least tell me why. What did I do wrong this time? He genuinely didn't understand why Daoden was so furious. But that very innocence made Daoden even more infuriated. That bastard you spared, Daoden roared, didn't you realize it? He was planning to stab you in the back. You couldn't even anticipate that? The accusation left Zeon utterly stunned. He hadn't expected that to be the reason. Daoden didn't give him a chance to reply and kept yelling, "How long are you gonna keep up that smug attitude?" His voice was sharp and unforgiving. With that, Daoden stepped down, sword in hand, his face showing a clear mix of anger and disappointment. Get lost. Though the words were harsh, they were filled with genuine care. Beside them, Pavilsa and Kelly quietly witnessed the whole conversation. No one interrupted. They just stood there watching Daoden scold Zeon. It's not too late, Daoden continued, his voice heavy with disappointment. Get lost and go back. It was clear he believed Zeon's soft-heartedness and habit of forgiving enemies would ultimately become his fatal flaw. An awkward silence filled the air. Suddenly, a voice came from up front, "Thank you." Everyone turned around. Pavilsa and Kelly had walked down and approached them. They spoke calmly and sincerely, "All the people of Archelan are peaceful civilians who don't know how to fight. We of the MC clan aren't fighters to begin with." Pavilsa stepped forward, speaking with utmost sincerity, "We're all blacksmiths. The only thing we know how to do is swing hammers at scavengers. Without you, I shudder to think how many people would have died. Truly, thank you. You did a great job." Before Zeon could respond, Kelly rushed over and hugged him tightly. "Yeah, you were super cool. You beat the whole Black Shark gang all by yourself. Don't mind what that monster Daoden says. His standards are always insanely high. When I was little and forged my first knife." But before she could finish, Zeon softly interrupted her in a low voice, "No, I knew Mashimoto was going to attack me when I spared him. But I still didn't kill him." His voice was calm, yet heavy with self-reproach. "I tried to turn a blind eye to the truth. I just wanted him to pass out and disappear. I know they were evil. I know they deserved to die. But I just didn't have the guts to be the one to finish them off. It was purely out of cowardice. I didn't want to carry the guilt of taking a life." Silence instantly fell over the room. Old man Daoden was right, Zeon continued. He must have seen so many people like me die for that exact reason, which is why he was so harsh with his words. Maybe that was just his twisted way of showing he cared. Hearing that, Pavela let out a soft sigh. Daoden is just terrible at expressing himself. It was a simple explanation, but hit the nail on the head. Daoden's harsh words sounded cruel, but they came from experience, not malice. After listening to Zeon's confession, neither Pavela nor Kelly knew what to say. The two of them just stood there in silence. They had intended to comfort him, to praise him for saving everyone. But now they finally saw the heavy burden he was carrying. While everyone saw him as a hero who saved the village from destruction, Xian could only think about the life he lacked the resolve to take and the potential consequences of that failure. The gratitude, admiration, and praise around him couldn't erase the lingering guilt and hesitation in his heart. Meanwhile, Daoden was sitting alone in his room, looking completely nonchalant as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, the door burst open. Xian barged in and raised his voice. "Why are you pretending you weren't even there?" Daoden slowly turned his head, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Oh look, our little scaredy cat is here." The mocking smile on his face widened even more. "You here to go home now?" Xian frowned immediately. "What's with that tone?" Crossing his arms, he tried to play it tough. "Old man, you're severely underestimating me. Let me make this clear, I'm not that weak. That whole thing was nothing." But before he could drag out his act, Daoden calmly cut him off. "And yet your hands are still shaking." Xian froze. Only then did he realize his fingers were trembling slightly. Daoden's gaze softened, turning noticeably more serious. "It's normal. You'd have to be insane not to shake." The room fell into silence as the old man continued, "Taking a life isn't easy." Every word carried the undeniable weight of raw experience. "It's ending a living soul. And that guilt will haunt you for the rest of your life." Xian listened quietly, unable to talk back. Daoden's voice wasn't sarcastic or abusive anymore, it was just the harsh reality spoken by someone who had been through it all. "So there's no need to try and forget it," Daoden said quietly. "And don't try to numb yourself, either. That guilt, hold on to it. Remember this, if it torments you, that's proof you're still human. If it gets too much to bear, you can leave right now." The old man offered a way out, but Xian shook his head without hesitation. "I already told you, I'm not backing down. It's no big deal to me. I'll protect my own life, so don't you worry." Saying that, a smile broke across his face as he added, "Besides, how could I leave a stubborn old guy like you all by himself? I'm staying so you don't die of loneliness." For a brief moment, Daoden actually cracked a smile, a truly rare sight. Xian continued with a smug grin, "Anyway, having me around makes it a lot less lonely, doesn't it?" The old man stayed silent. "Be honest with yourself." Xian crossed his arms, oozing confidence. "If I'm not here, who's gonna clean up your corpse?" Daoden's fist flew out instantly. "Whoa, wait. Use your words, not your hands." Xian's panicked shrieks echoed throughout the room as the old man immediately defaulted back to his favorite method of communication. Right as that serious conversation wrapped up, an extraordinary scene was unfolding inside the forge. A crowd of master blacksmiths had gathered in one place, dead focused on a single task. The air vibrated with intense heat and soul energy as they worked relentlessly, pouring every ounce of their heart and skill into the project. Kelly's eyes widened as she took in the sight. "My goodness, I've never seen so many master blacksmiths gathered together like this." Standing beside her, Pavela nodded as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Makes sense. They're tempering the soul of Daoden's blade, after all." Even so, Kelly couldn't hide her astonishment. "But it's been days already." She stared at the sword again. "How can a single blade radiate such terrifying power?" A blacksmith nearby let out a heavy sigh and replied slowly, "This sword, Crayon, is a masterpiece. A weapon forged from a man's sheer obsession." His eyes remained glued to the blade. "That's the only way to describe it." But that answer only piqued Kelly's curiosity further. "I've just never seen anything like this. I can't believe a human crafted it. It has countless runes, hundreds of thousands of cores, and even the soul of a beast embedded inside." A cold chill ran down her spine. "To be honest, it feels more like a living creature than a sword." The sword genuinely seemed to have a life of its own, as if it were breathing. "Who on earth forged it?" Kelly whispered, unable to tear her eyes away from the weapon. "Were they even human?" Her grandfather finally spoke up, "Crayon." Kelly blinked. "Huh? Wait, so the blacksmith and the sword have the exact same name?" Pavela nodded. "That's precisely how grand it is." It was no longer just a regular sword. It had become the ultimate symbol of the blacksmith's entire life and obsession. Finally, Pavela turned away. "We'll talk about that later. Let's head into the next room." But the moment they stepped inside, the entire group froze, their eyes wide in complete shock. The sight before them was completely unexpected. "Daoden never stays in one place for long," Pavela muttered. They're probably about to head out. Kelly looked ahead and instantly screamed in utter disbelief. What the hell is going on here, Daeodon? Her voice was laced with pure shock. Inside the room, Daeodon was standing there with a completely unbothered look on his face. Kelly scrambled to pull out Zeon, who had been slammed face-first into the ground, while Pavela immediately berated Daeodon for being way too rough with the kid. Daeodon, playing the strict master, shot back that Zeon shouldn't be talking trash to an old man. Pavela sighed at their usual antics before getting straight to the point. He informed Daeodon that the forging of his legendary blade, Crayon, was almost finished, meaning they'd be able to leave soon. Daeodon was genuinely surprised, exclaiming that the work had wrapped up much faster than he had anticipated. He sincerely praised the unrivaled, master-level craftsmanship of the Archilon smiths. Pavela simply told him to swing by the workshop to pick up the sword, but as Daeodon thanked him, Pavela's face suddenly froze, his eyes widening in shock as realization hit him. Pavela turned around and demanded Daeodon repeat what he had just said about parting ways. Daeodon firmly reminded Pavela of the very words he had spoken during their last meeting, that they would likely never see each other again. Turning his back, Daeodon's voice grew heavy with resignation. He agreed, admitting he truly didn't believe they would meet again in this lifetime. That definitive statement struck Pavela hard. This was a real final goodbye. A painful memory surged back. Pavela recalled that dark day when everyone, including himself, chose to turn away from the ugly truth and live as cowards on the run. He remembered the heavy weight of that choice vividly. The life they had been granted turned into a burden too heavy to bear. As someone who witnessed that day firsthand, he understood it better than anyone. Yet among those cowards, there was one single exception. Daeodon was the only one who never looked back. The only one who walked toward the light all by himself. He alone carried that crushing weight for over a century. How could Pavela not feel deep reverence for a man like that? Daeodon once again sincerely thanked his old friend for everything he had done. Out of nowhere, Daeodon shattered the heavy mood with a loud laugh, waving his hand as he cheerfully said he'd see him next time. The phrase next time echoed in Pavela's mind. He looked up, his eyes flickering with a mix of hope and confusion. That was when he caught sight of the kid. Poking his head out from behind Daeodon's back, Zeon was sporting a mischievous, triumphant grin. Pavela finally understood Zeon's promise to stay behind and make sure the old man didn't die alone hadn't been empty talk. With newfound spirits, Pavela called out to the departing master and disciple, happily telling them he'd be looking forward to the day they met again. 2 weeks later, Pavela sat alone on a boulder in the middle of the vast desert. He muttered to himself about how the past 2 weeks had flown by in the blink of an eye. His quiet contemplation was cut short by a playful ambush from Kelly, who popped up from behind his back with a little roar. He scolded her for acting like a child, but Kelly just pouted, insisting she was still young. Pavela picked up on her mood, noting that she was acting even more childish than usual today. He gently asked what was bothering her. Kelly gazed off into the distant horizon, admitting that now that Zeon was gone, she felt a slight emptiness in her heart. She explained that after worrying about him so much, she couldn't stop picturing the pure joy on his face when they handed him his new gear set. In her memory, Zeon's eyes had nearly popped out when he learned his new chestplate was forged from the corpse of the Sandwolf Queen, the very monster that almost killed him. He was totally blown away by the sheer amount of enchanted items they gave him. His face was a complete picture of utter disbelief. His excitement hit its absolute peak when he discovered the extra spatial storage. He admired its capacity and playfully asked Daeodon if he wanted to crawl inside. Watching him laugh with that pure, childish joy, Kelly realized that despite his overwhelming power, Zeon was still just a kid at heart. She offered a bittersweet smile, hoping he could hold on to that bright smile forever. Then she giggled, realizing she sounded just like her grandfather. He asked Kelly that if their paths ever crossed with Zeon again in the future, she had to promise to lend him a hand. Kelly beamed brightly and agreed with enthusiasm. She declared that since Zeon had saved Archilon, he was an honorary member of their clan. She swore she would craft her absolute greatest masterpiece for him. Pavela leaned down, his expression resolute and filled with a deep sense of duty. He was certain they would meet Zeon again. By helping the young man carry on Daeodon's legacy, they could finally begin to repay that massive debt. A debt, he revealed, that was owed to Daeodon not just by them, but by all of humanity. Meanwhile, Zeon's training in the middle of the desert forged ahead, interrupted by a swift punch to the head from his master. Zeon cried out in pain, demanding to know why the old man hit him. He complained that his IQ was already low enough without Daeodon actively trying to make it lower. The master's reasoning? Zeon was making way too much noise while he was trying to sleep. Xian protested, pointing out that Daoden was the one who ordered him to kill any magical beasts he spotted at night. Getting worked up, he even claimed that Daoden's greatsword, Crayon, was clicking its tongue in disapproval at his master's absurdity. Daoden's fix for Xian's low IQ was simple: punch him on the other side of his head to balance it out. Now half buried in the sand with 2 smoking lumps on his head, Xian muttered in defeat, "That's not how it works." He turned to his buddy, the sword Crayon, whining that it didn't take his side, while Daoden told him to stop talking nonsense, though Xian actually looked pretty pleased with himself. Through all that chaos, he had achieved his goal, completely draining his mana for the day. He was taking his master's training seriously. Mana was just like a muscle. You had to push it to its absolute limits to make it grow. He was determined to max out his capacity and hone his skills. The drive behind this intense resolve was the memory of his fight with Scavenger, his first real battle against another awakened human, not a monster. And he was honest with himself: he had lost. He had hesitated when facing a human, a fatal flaw he refused to tolerate. After Daoden left him behind in the desert, the feeling surging inside him wasn't despair, but pure fury at his own weakness and complacency. He realized a single moment of carelessness could completely invalidate his entire struggle for survival. Even the low-tier monsters he fought had a stronger will to live than he displayed in that moment. Looking up at the desert sky, he felt a cold wave of disappointment, a terrible feeling he swore never to experience again. He had to get stronger, no matter what. He knew his limits all too well, but he also saw the potential. So right now, he was going to focus on training and mastering the new gauntlets Kelly gave him. He recalled her instructions: slotting in fire attribute items would boost their power. He cursed his luck for missing out on the core from the Drake dungeon, and wondered if being able to communicate with weapons was the secret behind his master's strength. As he kept training, he grumbled under his breath, wondering if the old man's foul mood was a sign of male menopause. Suddenly, Daoden's voice cut in, asking if he was done harvesting yet. Xian, who was wiping off a magic crystal, confirmed he was finished. Daoden stood up, watching the sun dip below the horizon. It was time to move on. He casually mused out loud whether the sun was setting faster than usual or if it was just an illusion from moving non-stop. Daoden explained that the shift in the sun's path meant they had crossed into a new, unfamiliar stretch of the vast desert. With no landmarks around, they had to rely on the sun to navigate. Xian mischievously interpreted this as his master finally giving him the green light to find a spot to sleep. Daoden denied it, but his attention was quickly pulled towards something on the horizon. Looks like they had a welcome party. From the peak of the sand dune, they spotted a massive black mass looming in the distance. Xian narrowed his eyes, trying to get a clear look. He wondered if it was a mine or just a weird rock formation, noting that it looked a bit too small to be a mine. A savage grin spread wide across Daoden's face. He told the kid that this was merely the tip of the iceberg, and that what lay buried deep beneath the sand was the real shocker. With a roar, he declared that an unimaginably colossal mountain was buried right underneath them. A slab of rock so massive that even giant sandworms wouldn't dare come near it. Xian could only stare in dumbfounded awe at his master's sudden burst of excitement. He shouted, "You guys are two of a kind," as Daoden built up a running start and leaped off, soaring through the air toward the towering rock structure. Xian watched him go with a tired sigh, figuring his master was just hyped up about reaching a new area. He grumbled to himself about how taking care of old people was seriously exhausting work. Xian followed right after his master, gliding across the sand and effortlessly scaling the sheer cliff face. By the time he reached the top, Daoden was already lounging comfortably, casually asking what took him so long. Xian threw him a deadpan look and asked if they had swapped mental ages. He then pulled out 2 pieces of jerky. Master and disciple sat down, kicked their feet up, and tossed the jerky into their mouths at the exact same time. A rare moment of peace amidst the brutal desert. Daoden finally broke the silence, asking Xian how he was holding up in the desert. Xian replied that he was doing fine thanks to his master's lessons, but admitted he still had a long way to go. With a smirk, Xian added that it was hard to feel strong when traveling alongside a monster like him. Daoden brushed it off as useless flattery. The light-hearted vibe evaporated as Xian's expression turned dead serious. The master looked up at the swirling, star-filled night sky and set a benchmark. Once he could slice a desert storm that covered the entire sky in half, he'd be ready. Xian lowered his head, the sheer scale of the task weighing heavily on him for a moment. Daoden laid out a new path. He said that if Xian kept following their current route, he'd eventually come across a dungeon that Daoden himself had discovered decades ago for personal reasons. He warned that it was an insanely dangerous place, but added, clearing it might be the shortcut you need to level up your skills fast. He popped the question, "Are you going?" A wide, almost savage grin spread across Zeon's face, his eyes gleaming with hype. He sprang up, his whole body practically buzzing with energy, yelling that they should head out right now instead of waiting around. Daoden just told him to shut up and go to sleep. Right then, panicked screams echoed from down below as a group of people scrambled up the cliffside in a frenzy. They could hear a rustling sound in the shadows underneath. Zeon instinctively asked if it was a demon beast. Sensing one nearby, he offered to take care of it, but Daoden mockingly asked if he wanted to try making friends with it instead. The group below was panicking, scrambling for a hiding spot from whatever was chasing them, quickly deciding that splitting up would be even more dangerous. Zeon and Daoden watched from above as the desperate crowd ran toward their spot, assuming they were being hunted by a monster. But as they drew closer, Zeon's eyes widened in shock. It was a group of elves. The elves spotted the two humans perched high on the rock pillar. Seeing them for the first time, Zeon was amazed by their appearance, but his amazement quickly turned to utter disbelief when he overheard their plan. One elf suggested throwing the two humans to the monster to create a distraction while it chased them. Zeon was horrified. He had always heard elves were a noble race, yet these guys were casually plotting to use them as live bait. He thought to himself that even Kelly, who was only a half-elf, was way better than them. Before he could even process their cruelty, the elves had already scaled the cliff and were standing right in front of them. The lead elf didn't waste a second. She yelled at the two humans, ordering them to get off the rock. Her intentions were crystal clear. She wanted them down there as bait to lure the monster away so they could escape. The whole group took a hostile stance, weapons drawn, ready to force them into becoming monster food. Zeon tried to reason with them, pointing out that they were clearly fast enough to escape on their own, so why sacrifice them? But his words fell on deaf ears. Suddenly, a terrifying wave of crushing pressure radiated throughout the area, leaving everyone stunned. At first, Zeon thought an unprecedented beast had shown up. The elves seemed to feel that heavy pressure too, their faces frozen in pure terror. But he quickly realized this feeling wasn't coming from an approaching monster. It was a primal survival instinct triggered by sheer terror and unheard-of level of dread. Even after facing countless beasts and awakened humans, he instinctively tried to pinpoint the source of this overwhelming aura. His eyes widened in horror as he realized where it was coming from. The source of this soul-crushing pressure was none other than his own master, Daoden. The old man's murder intent was so intense it felt like a physical force, suffocating everything around them. The elves were completely paralyzed, their arrogance completely shattered. The leader stammered, unable to fathom how a mere human could possess such terrifying power. How could something like this even exist? She tried to pull herself together, screaming at her squad to hold their ground, telling them he was just a human. But her words were useless. Her comrades had already collapsed to their knees, completely broken by the old man's overwhelming aura. She couldn't believe they were kneeling before a mere human. Driven by a volatile mix of fear and pride, she made a fatal choice, declaring that he had to die. Gathering her power, she fired off an enchanted arrow, fully convinced that a human like him had no right to exist. Zeon let out a scream as he watched the lethal arrow streak straight toward his master. He was utterly terrified, but Daoden didn't even flinch. He just stood there, completely unfazed. With a simple flick of his wrist, he casually snatched the powered-up arrow right out of the air before it could pierce his neck. He turned around, his face a cold mask of absolute, unadulterated rage. The leader was terrified, desperately trying to rally her group and telling them to get into battle stances. She screamed at them that as long as they killed the human, everything would be fine. But suddenly, a voice cut right through the chaos with a chilling question: "How on earth are you bastards still alive?" Before anyone could react, a male elf named Jorah was struck out of nowhere. Daoden materialized right in front of him in the blink of an eye, grabbing the elf by his head as he growled that he should have wiped them all out decades ago. His comrades screamed for him to let Jorah go, furious that a human dared put a hand on an elf, but Daoden just tightened his grip, asking his question again in a low, deadly voice. "How did you scum survive?" he roared, demanding to know who they had slaughtered to make it out alive this time. He squeezed even harder, and with a sickening crunch, Jihora's head popped like a tomato, leaving the remaining elves watching in absolute horror. In an instant, Daoden stomped his foot down, triggering a massive shockwave that threw the elves right off their feet. He recalled their twisted, hypocritical logic. It didn't matter how many humans died for their sake because human lives were worth less than bugs. Humans were the ones meant to die, not elves. Daoden's rage boiled over completely as he screamed that it was because of scum like them that even after watching the world fall into complete ruin, they hadn't changed one bit. Zeon, caught right in the middle of the chaos, stood there utterly stunned, asking himself, what is he talking about? His master's words echoed in his head, claiming that the world turning out like this was all because of the non-human races. Right on cue, the ground violently exploded as the demon beast the elves were running from finally breached the surface, a colossal underground monster. The elves shrieked in terror as they fell right toward the gigantic creature they called Sulcaris. The elves seized what they saw as the perfect opportunity, shouting at their comrades to use the monster against the human. One of them screamed at her teammate Ikara to throw the smaller human Zeon to the monster first. While the monster was distracted, she planned to surround the human who had killed Jihora, but when she turned around, her eyes widened in complete horror as the world seemed to split in two. Daoden, a blurred force of nature, had already moved, cleaving both the monster and her in half with a single swing. He didn't slow down for a second, annihilating two more elves in an instant as they fell toward the beast. Landing gracefully, he grabbed one of the elves squarely by her face. With an eerie, chilling calmness, he asked her again, "Your village is nearby, isn't it?" before offering her a deal. He promised to let her go if she answered, but she just spat back a curse at him. So he slammed her head straight into the ground. The lifeless body now lay limp in a crater, surrounded by a pool of deep red. The towering figure of the old warrior was nothing short of a living nightmare. The last remaining elf was reduced to a trembling heap, begging him not to step any closer. Zeon finally snapped out of his shock and rushed over, pleading with his master to stop. But Daoden casually backhanded him away, the blow sending Zeon flying through the air before he slammed hard into the dirt. He turned back toward the cowering elf, mocking her for trembling like a leaf before a mere human. With a wide, savage grin, he asked her one last time, "Tell me where your village is." She couldn't believe a human actually knew about the elf village. The sheer terror of what he might do completely broke her spirit. But a single glance into the man's eyes made her forget the greater good of her entire race. Her eyes rolled back as she pointed toward the direction of her village, and Daoden smirked, having gotten the exact information he came for. She immediately began begging for her life, crying out that she was wrong and apologizing over and over. Daoden bolted off toward the village, kicking up a blinding trail of dust in his wake. By the time the dust settled, the elf found herself left all alone. A wave of relief washed over her, and she broke into a fit of wild, hysterical laughter. She had survived, but that brief moment of relief vanished as she collapsed, her ultimate fate still hanging in the balance. Nearby, Zeon pulled himself out of the rubble, battered and bleeding. He grumbled under his breath about the crazy old man, realizing that if it weren't for his new chest plate, he would have ended up with at least 4 broken ribs. He looked up, his whole body aching, and called out for his master. He saw the sheer destruction, the scattered bodies, and the terrifying power his master had just unleashed, wondering why on earth he had to take things this far. Refusing to be left behind, Zeon dragged himself to his feet and yelled after him, asking where in the world he was going. He remembered Daoden's chilling parting words to Jihora, "I should have killed every last one of you decades ago. Where have you bastards been hiding?" His master's furious claim that the non-human races were responsible for the state of the world now carried a terrifying new weight. Zeon finally made it to the destination and called out for his grandfather, but the only thing waiting for him was a gruesome, horrific scene. The elf village was engulfed in a raging inferno, a sight of total destruction that left him completely speechless. Right before his eyes was a total massacre, the ground littered with the motionless bodies of fallen elves. Zeon gasped for air, realizing that even though he had sprinted here at full speed, he was still way too late. He fell to his knees among the corpses, utterly consumed by despair. But through the crackling flames and his own heavy breathing, he caught a sound, a faint voice. Someone was still alive, and a sudden surge of hope flared in his chest as he scrambled up, sensing a survivor taking cover nearby. Pushing his sensory abilities to their absolute limit, he pinpointed their location. They were extremely close. He cautiously approached a narrow alleyway, hearing faint cries for help, but his hope instantly shattered into pure horror when he caught the reflection in the survivor's eyes. It was his master, poised and ready to deliver the final killing blow. Daoden swung his massive greatsword without a single second of hesitation, leaving Zeon in absolute disbelief. Was this merciless executioner really the same grandfather who had raised him all these years? Zeon unleashed his power, summoning a towering titan of furious sand. Master and disciple clashed, a brutal battle of opposing ideals, as Zeon screamed out, demanding to know why his master had to go to such extreme lengths. Daoden looked down at his pupil with pure, unadulterated contempt. Mocking him for trying to play the hero, he unleashed a crushing wave of raw power, sending a shockwave of energy slamming directly into the young boy. Xian was blown backward, completely helpless against his master's overwhelming strength. He tumbled through the air, the terrifying pressure knocking the wind right out of his lungs. Daoden pressed his attack, a brutal, uncompromising lesson in power. The old man's face was a mask of cold, unwavering resolve as he disciplined his student. Xian slammed hard onto the ground, shaking the entire area, and pushed himself up through the cloud of dust, groaning in frustration at the old man's relentless methods. Daoden stood over him, berating him for playing the hero when he was nothing more than a reckless zealot. The veteran warrior laid out what had been running through his mind on the way here. Xian admitted he didn't step in because he couldn't understand his master's rage and felt it was way too risky. Daoden looked down, completely unimpressed, and coldly asked what Xian meant by that. Xian argued that while he could understand wanting revenge, going as far as killing those who had already surrendered was crossing the line. In the blink of an eye, Daoden slammed his boot onto Xian, pinning him into the dirt and telling him he tossed the word understand around way too casually. Daoden threw his past right back in his face, asking if the scavengers he killed were the ones who murdered his parents, and reminding him of the rampage he went on using that exact justification. Daoden explained that the elves' twisted mindset didn't just come out of nowhere, preaching that those four weren't some rare exception. Every single non-human race was built the same way, taking human lives either directly or indirectly. Still pinned to the ground, Xian's mind reeled from the revelations as Daoden laid their motives completely bare. It wasn't for pleasure or religion, they killed purely for their own gain, forcing humans into the role of helpless victims. He explained that it was the only way they could keep from spiraling into total despair over their own miserable existence. Roaring in fury, Daoden spat that Xian's pathetic pity was nothing more than a delusion. In the real world, everything was a battleground of pure survival, and he needed to know his place before spewing nonsense about humanity. The old warrior revealed that he had witnessed the world both before and after its fall, an era Xian couldn't even begin to comprehend. Slowly, Xian pushed himself up, his body bruised and aching, but his spirit refusing to break. Daoden turned to leave, throwing back one last chilling question. Would Xian still cling to those naive beliefs after learning the dark truth about this world? Xian, covered in blood but still standing proud, demanded to know what secret he was missing. His master's response was simple and terrifying, telling him everything pointed to him being young, foolish, and mistaking reckless actions for justice simply because he knew jack shit about their lives. But Xian shot back, reminding the old man that he was the very one who taught him to never back down. With unyielding, resolute eyes, he declared that he would carve out his own path. He swore that even if he witnessed the same horrors his master had, and even after learning the whole truth, he would never abandon his ideals. Master and disciple locked eyes without blinking, a silent, tense showdown between two generations shaped by a broken world. The old man finally gave in, telling Xian to search around the ruined village to find the answers for himself. Xian's eyes landed on the clothes of a fallen elf, making him wonder where on earth they had managed to get their hands on gear like that. Daoden brushed it off, saying they would figure all that out once they got back to Archilon. Left all alone among the ruins, Xian began investigating, quickly realizing the layout of the village was completely bizarre. It was tiny, consisting of nothing but living quarters, no shops, no restaurants, and no farms, meaning this was by no means a self-sustaining settlement. A functioning village needed far more than just a place to sleep, signaling that something was fundamentally wrong with this place. His search led him to a massive chest filled to the brim with jewelry and accessories, which he carefully examined. The craftsmanship was somewhat similar to things he had seen before, yet distinctly different, featuring a style he had never encountered in any human city. The items didn't feel like they were made by human hands, carrying an ancient, timeless texture as if they had existed for well over a century. He recalled the official history. Non-human races had only appeared 100 years ago when the world transformed into a desolate desert. But could a race really build such a deep, complex culture in the span of just a single century? It sounded impossible, and then his hands found a tablet carved with strange, intricate script that he couldn't read to save his life. He had always accepted the existence of non-human races and magic beasts as an unquestionable fact of life since they were around long before he was born. But a chilling realization began to take root in his mind. What if they didn't just suddenly appear, but had actually existed long before that? Looking at the non-human artifacts, he realized that perhaps they hadn't come to Earth of their own free will. A terrifying theory began to form in his mind. What if some unknown, overwhelmingly powerful entity had forcibly brought all these non-human races to Earth? If such a divine entity truly existed, then the very foundation of the world he lived in was built on a massive lie. The final, horrifying piece of the puzzle fell into place when he opened another chest. Inside was a pile of human belongings covered in blood, and the dark truth finally hit him. The village didn't have shops because they never needed them. Everything they owned had been stolen through the slaughter of humans. A solemn, mournful wind swept through the ghost town, carrying the silent screams of countless victims, and consumed by a cold, sullen rage, Xian finally snapped. He stood amidst the dead, sand swirling violently around both of his arms as he slammed his fists into the ground, bending the desert sand to his will. He raised a massive tomb straight from the harsh desert terrain, swallowing the entire village whole. Kneeling before the row of makeshift graves, Xian mourned the fallen humans, whispering soft promises that burying them like this was the absolute least he could do to pay his respects.